All right,
start
let's
with-
roll. You're in charge. The minutes.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, Design Review Board meeting. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Design Review Board on July 18th, 2023. This meeting is called to order. I'll request staff to call the roll for members who are present.
Okay, member Alexin,
Present.
Chair Kowalski,
Present.
member Summers,
Present.
member Blaney,
Present.
and members Reggie and Kent are absent.
Next, we'll move to the meeting procedures. I'd like to ask staff to address how public comment will work this evening.
Sure, so good evening, everyone. In addition to accepting written comments up to the DRB meeting, staff is accepting public comments in person at City Hall or over the telephone. If you're participating via Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature to notify staff that you wish to speak. If you're participating by telephone and wish to provide comments, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period for the item you'd like to speak on. This will virtually raise your hand. Once it is your turn, you will hear a notification that the host is inviting you to participate. At that time, please press *6 to unmute yourself. If you submitted comments prior to the meeting by email or letter, it has been forwarded to the Design Review Board.
Let me now describe the meeting procedures. We'll begin with the staff report for each item, followed by the applicant's presentation. Members of the public will then be invited to speak. Community members on the conference call can speak when they receive the notification. They have been unmuted. Comments will be limited to a maximum of 2 minutes per person. The board will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff or the public after each segment. We will close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the board for discussion. Anyone with an urgent communication on a topic not on the agenda may address the board at this time. Please know that anything raised has not been noticed or agendized, so there will be no discussion on these items.
Okay, so to comment on items not on the agenda, for urgent communication, to comment on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. If commenting by phone, you can press *9. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. And I do see a couple of hands that have been raised for some time, so we'll go ahead and allow them to talk. First person is Charlene Kuykendall. Charlene, would you like to provide comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, I'm not seeing a response from Charlene. And then also I see a raised hand from Keith and Connie Granger. Keith or Connie, would you like to speak?
Yes, we were wanting to speak regarding Northgate, but we can hold until that comes up, actually.
Okay, sounds good. I see no further hands.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar, which has one item from the minutes. Oh, sorry. Okay,
Oh, no, you can just come up to the mic.
and we're on non-agendized items.
Of course. Good evening, board. My name is Steve Harris. I am a field representative from the NorCal Carpenters Union, Local 35 here in Marin. I am speaking here tonight to talk to you about ensuring the future of our construction industry and your community. There are a variety of factors that I hope you will consider in all your future endeavors to lift up the local community. First and foremost is ensuring the men and women who are building your community are provided with health care. By choosing contractors that give this benefit to their employers or empower the people building your community and give them the safeguard that we all need as a community. Our health, and on average, 1 out of 4 construction workers in California lack health insurance, which is 2.5 times all California workers. That cannot be a statistic in our community to fall into. Policies that require contractors to offer their workers' families health care will raise standards in the construction industry, while always ensuring that employers who do offer health care can compete on a level playing field. Another factor is hiring locally. All too often do our community members have to work 2 to 3 hours away from home, which in turn has them spending that much more money and gas and food in other areas, leaving our town to miss out with the tax opportunity. As the state and local communities look to reduce carbon emissions, local hires should be a part of any green or sustainable construction strategy. As more and more construction workers are forced into other communities, local hire policies can help bring a stability, to their families and communities, ensuring workers can spend time with their families instead of spending hours and hours in traffic. Along with the local hire, we need to ensure that local hires are properly trained for work. Apprenticeship programs remedy that. Construction apprenticeship programs are a proven escalate to the middle class, training tens of thousands of California residents every year at no cost to the taxpayers. Apprenticeship program success depends on apprenticeship being able to secure work opportunities. Without work opportunities, apprentices are likely to leave in the industry for lower paying jobs. Policies such as pre-qualification helps to ensure contractors hire apprentices and are doing their part. To build our community's construction forces, policies that can require the utilization of apprentices, develop a pool of skilled labor and the local hire who can work on your future projects. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments at this time? All right, we'll move on to the consent count. Oh, sorry. One more, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Planning Commission. My name is Carmen Lasso. I'm for the local 35 in San Rafael. I have 18 years in the field. Okay, I'm coming here speaking about lowest labor standards. They consist of 4 important things. Number 1 is apprentices programs, who they give you the opportunity to teach women, men, and young kids to be a better life. Number 2 is a health insurance opportunity to be available to have medical insurance for family and not burden the system. In my case, I have my husband. He's disabled. He breathed by the machine, and he also had dementia. The only I use it for the system is the IHSS program, who help me take care of him in my time work. And also all the other expenses, diaper, medication and everything, my company and my job pay for everything. And I don't need to use any help for the system. That is our point most important, I think, in our life. Number 3 is local worker. It give you the opportunity to spend more time with our families, kids, and not need to drive far away for any emergency, for anything can happen around our families. And number 4 is that labor wages can be available to save money for all childs want to be a teenagers, get out to the high school, and we can help them pay for the college, university, and not depend any system. Like in my country, fathers have money sent to kids to the college. So I would like it to ask elected officials in the city to San Rafael, please adopt these areas, most the labor standards and include the labor wages. Thank you. God bless you. Good night.
Are there any further comments? All right, at this time, we'll move on to the consent calendar, which has only one item, the minutes from the June 6th Design Review Board meeting. Are there any comments from the public? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So if anybody wants to comment on the minutes, you can raise your hand through Zoom, or you can provide a public comment here in the chambers. I still see Charlene Kuykendall, so I'll ask her if she wants to speak once more. And Charlene, this is your chance. And seeing none.
Okay. Is someone prepared? Is there someone to make a motion about the minutes?
Sure. Board Member Summers moves that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Board Member Lexon seconds.
Let's take a
Okay.
vote.
Absolutely. Member Alexin,
Aye.
Chair Kowalski,
Aye.
Member Summers,
Aye.
and Member Blaney.
Abstain.
The motion is passed. We'll now move on to the action items on the agenda tonight. 5800 Northgate Drive, Northgate Town Square. The request for Planning Commission recommendation for an environmental and design review permit to allow the comprehensive redevelopment of the existing Northgate Mall into a new phased mixed-use development with retail and 1422 residential units on a 44.76 acre site with general commercial and a planning permit. May I have the staff report?
Chair Kowalski, I want to go ahead and start with a brief introduction, if I may.
Sure.
I'm Ally Judici, the Community Development Director. Tonight, Heather Hines is serving as project manager for the Northgate Mall project. She'll be providing a presentation. We also have Jeff Valentine. You're very familiar with Jeff. He's been serving as staff planner for the project, and the three of us, along with a team of other city staff, have been working with the applicant on this project. I want to also kind of set expectations for tonight and identify what the purpose of tonight's meeting is and your role as a design review board. Tonight, the focus of the presentation will be on 4 components with which Heather will be presenting in a few minutes. And we are essentially providing you with a presentation of these 4 components. Your role as a design review board is to provide feedback, to receive the design evaluation and presentation, and to at some point provide feedback on design elements of the project. Your role is not to provide input on the policy type items, things like traffic, density, those types of things are reserved for the Planning Commission and the City Council at a future date. And members of the public will have an opportunity to provide input at that time. So with this introduction, I'm asking the public comments when that time comes to focus on design elements. With that, I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to Heather Hines, who will be providing the presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Design Review Board, members of the public, applicant team. The introduction to this project you read is the full project. So it's quite a mouthful and it's a large project. And so as Ally mentioned, am I focusing on that to push it? Oh. As Ally mentioned, we have really tried to narrow it down to a first bite as we're moving through it. And Jeff, maybe you could just forward the slide.
Yeah.
So because of the size and the complexity of this project, we are bringing forward for this meeting really discussion on the site plan, the bicycle and pedestrian network, the overall landscape plan, and the commercial architecture. We will be bringing forward the residential portion of this project at a separate meeting. And the intention there is really to allow the design review board as well as members of the public to get all the information on these components and provide that feedback, ask questions, and go from there. So we are going to give an informational report on those aspects, give you the opportunity to hear from the public. And then if the design review board feels like they need more time for discussion and review before making a recommendation to the Planning Commission, the option to continue this discussion to a date certain of August 8th, which I believe is your next DRB meeting. Or if you feel like you have the information before you to make a recommendation on these 4 aspects, that is also an option for the board to do this evening. Next slide, please. Is that working now? Okay. So I'm going to provide an overview. The applicant and the applicant team are here to also provide a presentation, give an opportunity for any clarifying questions, public comment, and then consideration by the board. So as a little bit of background, you've seen this project. The DRB has seen this project before. There was a joint study session with the Planning Commission in September of 2021. In addition, the DRB held a study session in May 2022. And then Planning Commission held a study session most recently in November of last year. At that meeting last November, the Planning Commission was generally supportive of the overall layout of the project, did not discuss major changes to the layout, but did have some comments, and they're in your staff report. But Town Center was one, bike and ped facilities was another one. There was some discussion about the affordable units, which isn't really part of our discussion tonight. But those are outlined in your staff report, and happy to answer any questions on those as we move through. So in response to the feedback, in addition to the feedback that the applicant received from stakeholder outreach, which is also outlined in your staff report, and applicant has done a good job at reaching out to different stakeholders and receiving that feedback. Revised plans were submitted in May and are the packet before you in your big binders of plans. Those are the revised plans that are the most current plans. The EIR for this project, the Environmental Impact Report, is also underway. So a little bit of background, some of these graphics might look familiar. Obviously, the site, the Northgate Mall, is an existing shopping mall, and this project is really looking at redevelopment of this site. So this graphic shows in red those areas that are proposed for demolition as part of the phase 1 of this project, which is called the 2025 Master Plan. And the areas in yellow are those that are proposed for demolition in the second phase, which is the 2040 Vision Plan. So that is kind of looking at what would remain of the existing mall, which are those areas in blue. So it's the Rite Aid down in the bottom right-hand corner. You've got the parking garage in the upper portion, the cinema, and then some of the shops in that other portion of blue, Macy's being yellow there. And so some of the phasing of the demolition and the project is tied to existing leases with some of those tenants. But this gives you an indication of what is being proposed in terms of removing some of the structure that's there today. This is the site plan as part of that phase 1. So most notably, is this a little, yep. You've got residential 1 right here, residential 2, residential 3, and residential 4. So again, those are aspects of the project that we'll be discussing in greater detail, the design of those as part of a subsequent meeting, but just in terms of the overall layout. One of the other things with phase 1 is phase 1 now incorporates the town square. So that was a comment that was received as part of that feedback loop. And originally it was part of phase 2. It is now part of phase 1. And then 2 pad buildings out at this frontage. So those are kind of the highlights of what is going on as part of that first phase. In terms of some of the statistics, and this is shown on sheet SD10, we're looking at demolition of just under 350,000 square feet of existing retail as part of phase 1, construction of an additional about 44,000 square feet of new retail as part of phase 1, development of 922 residential units, including 96 affordable units. And then obviously the town square being a significant amenity added during phase one. Phase two, this is the 2040 vision plan. And so as part of phase two, you have the addition of residential 5, and you have the addition of residential 6. Those are 2 significant changes, as well as additional pads. So you've got 3 additional pads out here. So this is over time creating more of an urban edge along this frontage with those 4 pads. You also have some changes in here with the commercial, and you have the removal of the Macy's, which is right here. So you also have some changes here and creating that walkway through this section to kind of create more of a spine into the center as part of that phase two. As part of this vision plan, it's demolition of 339,000 square feet of retail, construction of 55,000 square feet of new retail, and the addition of 500 additional units, including 51 additional affordable units. This is outlined in SD 14 for those following at home or from the dais. And then one of the things that changes here too is there's currently a open space area here that is removed for development of these shops in here. So that's looking at both of the phases. In total, we're looking at 1,422 residential units, including 147 lower income, and a resulting total of a little over 217,000 square feet of retail. So I wanted to walk through the 4 items and touch on some of the comments that were heard previously, some of the changes, and then I know the applicant team also has a presentation to dive into some of this as well, and then we're happy to answer questions. So starting with the overall site plan, as I previously mentioned at the Planning Commission study session in November of 2022, there was overall support generally for the site plan. There wasn't significant ask for major changes to the site plan. Some of the changes were more focused on the town square and a request for the town square to increase in size, and changes to the bike and ped circulation, which we will touch on. So really the plan set that came in May of 2023 had pretty minor modifications to the overall layout of the project. Some of these stemmed from changes to residential 5, which is down here, and it was pulling this building back to create more of an entry here, more of a gateway into the site, which was in response to one of the design review board's comments back from their study session. There also, one of the more significant changes in the plans that kind of impacted the overall site plan was really fleshing out residential 6. So this building got more refined in terms of its location and massing and design, and that was done in order to show the inclusion of 102 additional units that were part of an overall concept for the number of units, but they weren't specifically shown in a specific building. So that's one of the other changes that was made. Taking a moment to really focus on the town square. The town square has increased in size from what was originally proposed. As mentioned, it also moved from phase 2 to phase 1. But one of the comments from the Planning Commission was think about making the town square bigger, with some comments to think about taking some of the parking away. Oops, sorry, wrong button. Oh no, I'm giving you all a sneak peek. looking at taking some of this parking away to expand the central green, to reduce the parking and expand the central green. The applicant chose not to do that. Looking at the need for that parking area to serve and ensure vitality of those shops directly fronting on that area. And also in the absence of a specific size requirement in the city's code for a commercial development to have open space such as this. So they do believe that the 48,000 square foot town center is adequate for the design and the needs it is serving. I will point out that there is an approximately 13,000 square foot area in this area that's a bike hub, as well as seating, a coffee kiosk. So it's a little bit of an extension. And then there's retractable bollards that are designed here and here that really give the option to use those retractable bollards to close that area off for farmers market or special events. One of the things the applicant has also done is you'll notice that this area, and it doesn't quite come through in this slide great, but this is all a different paving pattern. And that's in an attempt to have a change, a marked change as you would enter that area, especially in a vehicle that you're in a different area, and slow down and pay attention. So those are some of the things that the applicant has done to enhance this area. There's an increase in amenities. Some of the comments were making sure there was amenities and seating areas for people of all ages to really ensure that this space met the needs of a broad range of the community. So they have created different little seating areas, different types, some swings, some covered areas, Adirondacks, picnic tables. There's a range of different amenities. The dog park was moved to this far area over in here. And there's a play area with a commitment to make sure that toddler play equipment is programmed in that area as well. And then finally pointing out that the large screen, outdoor screen that was on the cinema has been moved to this pavilion to facilitate watch parties or movies in the park, that as an amenity. This is a rendering of the town center, kind of showing this is the dog park area. These are kind of some covered patio areas with seating. This is that screen I was talking about, play area in here. So that gives you a perspective of that. And this is that area in front of the theater with the bollards, the retractable bollards, to create an area where there might be special events, farmers market, and the like. So touching on a couple other things with the site plan, specifically at a previous DRB study session, there was a request to the applicant to look into bringing transit service interior to the mall. The applicant has indicated that in their meetings with Marin County Transit, the feedback was really that Marin County Transit does not want to drive the buses into the mall interior, that doesn't serve their service needs. And so one of the things that Marin County Transit did ask for were additional transit amenities at the existing bus stop that exists by Rite Aid. So you'll see in the plan set that bike racks, bike lockers, trash receptacle have been added in that area to respond to those requests. The application, the revised plans also have a series of street sections that really help visualize the different spaces within the public realm interior to the site, the bike, pedestrian, parking, vehicles, so you can really understand how those are working together in different areas of the site. And then finally, touching on the parking garage, there had been a request from the DRB for exploration of intensifying or adding to the parking garage. The applicant has indicated that based on structural information of the existing garage, it is not structurally, it can't add to the parking garage. It doesn't have the structural integrity to add additional layers to the parking garage. So what they have done is tried to better integrate the parking garage. In this visual, you see kind of an entry tower for that parking, and then solar that goes around the outside of the parking garage, freestanding solar. So before moving on to discussion of bicycle and pedestrian network, under each of these items in the staff report, staff offered some questions for areas specifically that we would seek the board's feedback on. For instance, the pattern and color of the stamped asphalt around the town center, feedback on that, what would be appropriate. And where might public art be able to further enhance the town square? This is something that is brought up in general plan policy for the town square, integrating public art to further enhance the community amenity. Moving on to the bike and ped network, comments from both Planning Commission and the Design Review Board really urge the applicant to strengthen access to and through the site. The applicant worked closely with community stakeholders to gather input and further refine the bike and ped approach for the overall project. Some significant revisions were made to the plans specifically to respond to those comments, such as reducing the vehicular travel lanes to the minimum required by fire for safe fire access, extension of the Class 1 path on Northgate to kind of wrap the site, multimodal pathways in the residential area that are separated from the traffic, added bike facilities, and improved access to the site, both down where I showed that where residential 5 was pulled back to kind of enhance that entry, as well as from the west and the northwest. One of the comments that was received in relationship with bike and ped network overall was seeking an overall reduction in the parking on the site as a way to enhance and make it more enjoyable and increase safety for bike and peds overall on the site. Again, the applicant has chosen not to further reduce parking, and the city does not have parking maximums adopted that have a code requirement for that. One of the things I did want to bring up is there had been a feedback about looking at raised crosswalks as a interior to the site as a way to slow traffic down, traffic calming, to really further enhance bike and ped use of the site. There was some concern with fire about the ability to have raised crosswalks and have safe fire protection. We are continuing to explore if there is an appropriate design that could meet both of those objectives. So seek any feedback from Design Review Board on that concept, and it is also something that we continue to look at. This is a graphic that is in the plan set showing you the changes to the bike network. As I mentioned, the Class 1, this line rings around almost the entire site to here. And then it's hard to tell on this, but this is a different color in this area that is within the residential areas. It's a separated multimodal path. All the blue dots within this plan show bike parking, including both bike rooms on the ground floor of the residential buildings, bike racks, and bike lockers. Specifically, there's a bike lockers added to the parking garage as well. So just touching on one thing that I know is extremely important to the community is the Marydale Promenade. The project is not proposing to construct the Marydale Promenade to the Smart Station. Instead, they have proposed a financial contribution to the future construction of that. And then the design of the network on the site does facilitate that Class 1 connection to a future Marydale Promenade to the Smart Station. And as I discussed, there is an increased bike facilities, bike parking, bike rooms, bike lockers, and that bike hub right next to the front of the cinema building. So some of the questions that we posed in the staff report about bike and ped is really looking at, should there be further refinement of pedestrian access within the surface parking lots to better define safe pedestrian movement? Are there additional improvements that should be considered to ensure successful implementation of the Marydale Promenade as part of this project? And then the issue of raised crosswalks within key areas of the project. Are there specific areas such as around the town square that we should really be focusing that exploration on some of those enhanced crosswalks? Moving on to the landscape plan. There wasn't a whole lot of comments in previous study sessions about landscaping in particular. The revised plans have a much more robust planting palette shown, and also in your packet was information about water usage and identifying which of the plants in the plant palette are native. You'll also notice that there is a proposed use of some larger specimen 48 inch box trees in strategic areas, and many of the street trees that are proposed at 36-inch box, which is a larger than typical planting to kind of enhance those areas. Landscaping is used for, overall beautification, also used for screening and shading, and really a successful landscape plan plays into success of a lot of the other aspects of the project, such as the alternative transportation, creating those strong gateways entering the project, and creating inviting gathering areas. So this is, an area that shows open lawn area. This is a picture from phase 1. Really looking, is there more landscaping could do in some of these strategic areas to further enhance the usability and enjoyment of the community amenities within the project. So I think I already touched on most of the questions were asked. One area in particular that I want to kind of call the board's attention to is, and we'll talk about it a little more under the commercial architecture, but the cinema, it's a large building, large expanse of relatively blank walls, and that it's a cinema. And so the applicant has proposed using landscape to try to screen that building, particularly on the rear, where the rear of the cinema building faces the front of some of the townhome units. So looking at how we can use landscaping and have they use landscaping appropriately to help screen that and improve that play between the different land uses along that area. So finally, commercial architecture. At previous study sessions, the DRB comments avoid long blank walls, really looking for cohesion and unifying design in the commercial architecture, and using the commercial architecture and refinements to it to provide active street frontages and engage at that ground floor level. So revisions have refine the commercial architecture, added the color and material cut sheets, and I believe we have physical samples here today from the applicant team, and also including the building lighting types for the outside of the building. So that's the additional detail that you'll find in your packet. Kind of going back to the cinema, given the size of that cinema building, it is a large building. The applicant has used strategies for breaking up the large walls. That includes material and colors, landscape screening, as I previously mentioned. They've added some design articulation, specifically on the back. They added some glazing area to try to bring things down to a human scale along that rear facade. And then the east facing elevation has kind of a artistic detailing, a mountain scene on the side of the building that is something to look at. Also, the activation and the detailing on the ground floor. So you'll see in your packet, there is a lot of specifics with ground floor storefronts opening onto patios or outdoor dining areas. And also looking specifically at the pad buildings out along Las Colinas, because they are facing both the street and the interior of the shopping mall. The applicant is going to be pulling up elevations like of the cinema building in more detail to go into some of that detail. Again, we looked at this one before, but seeing these storefront spaces here and here opening up onto patios, green space. This is one of the pad buildings that's out along the frontage. So really the feedback that the applicant team has gotten from staff is really needing to focus on four-sided architecture on these buildings. So you don't have blank walls along the street frontage, but you also don't have blank walls facing into the mall. So it's a challenge to figure out how to make sure that you have a human scale on all four sides of these buildings. In terms of some outstanding questions, looking at the plans in terms of, has the applicant used color accents appropriately to break up massing, specifically with the cinema building? Is the mountain design relief on the east elevation of the cinema appropriate to soften the impact of that expansive wall? Is the tower element on the parking garage adequate to kind of improve and bring that human scale to that? And then the four-sided architecture is another one. So kind of wrapping up staff's presentation, standards for review. This project is being reviewed for consistency with all applicable regulations and policies. So that's the general plan, the zoning ordinance, the design guidelines. We put a lot of the design guidelines in the staff report as specific kind of standards and feedback to be thinking about. And then obviously with the project level environmental review, we're looking to the California Environmental Quality Act and those guidelines, as well as the local processing procedures for the city of San Rafael. Next steps in the process. So the next step is for the design review board to review and make recommendations on the project. So continuing this current discussion until August 8th, unless you feel ready to make formal recommendation to the Planning Commission on those 4 items tonight and then coming back with the residential architecture for consideration in September. And then we're continuing to work on the EIR, ongoing public outreach, and then moving into public hearings with the Planning Commission and City Council. So the recommendation is really to receive this presentation, the applicant's presentation on those 4 focused areas of the project, receive public comment, and then either continue the item or provide the recommendation to the Planning Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation. All 3 of us are here to answer questions to the best of our ability, and the applicant team. has a presentation as well.
Anybody have questions of staff? Should we hold our questions until after the applicant?
Well, normally we would ask for staff name. But no, but yeah, applicant.
Anyone have a question of the staff? I have questions, but I'm not prepared. I reserve the right to ask you later. Okay. So we now have, you are the applicant.
I am indeed. My name is Dave Geiser. I'm the Managing Director of Design and Construction for Malone Geyer Partners. It's nice to be with you in person. We've had a couple of meetings via Zoom, so it's always nice to get together in person to review what we think is a very exciting project. With me tonight is our entire design team, from our landscape architect to our residential architect, commercial architect, civil engineer. All of our experts are here to answer any questions you might have in greater detail. I'm the coordinator, but I don't know all the details to the specifics myself. So they're here to help me. Here we are ready. Thank you. Let's get started. We've been busy in the community. We've had over 40 outreach meetings with not only Responsible Growth Marin, I think leads our list. We've probably met with them 5 or 6 different times, but also the different organizations throughout your community, the Terra Linda Group, bike coalitions, Marin Transit. Again, all of the different meetings we've had over the years, receiving feedback, receiving input, and modifying our plans accordingly as we've been able to in response to these different meetings that we've had. This just illustrates that we've been busy in your community. This slide was, you've seen this before. This was from our 2021 joint meeting with the Planning Commission, where we talked about that, our main project objective is to implement the San Rafael General Plan 2040 vision for a mixed-use transit-oriented project with high-density housing. That's what we're trying to promote here, is what we're trying to create is a real sense of place, a community of not only retail and housing, but job opportunities, employment centers that's well connected to transit. And so I think we've gone a long way since our original proposal, and we'll do a little bit of history, but I'll try to breeze through it. I don't want to repeat everything that Heather just said. Real quickly too, and we can get into this deeper dive, is that, we're proposing a sustainable project here. We're proposing all of our residential be all electric. We've got dual plumbing. We're using recycled water. We've got extensive recycling. Our water quality is extensively researched and implemented in our project that we're happy to talk more about. EV charging and low voltage, LED lighting and all of the sustainable elements meeting the Cal Green requirements for the site. So happy to go into that further, but just along the way, we're meeting all the state standards for sustainability. I just want to briefly touch about this. This becomes a key issue. Why can't you do this and why can't you do that? We have existing tenants on site, and with those tenants, we have leases, legal documents that allow the tenants certain enjoyments of the site, such as parking and site control, etc. Rite Aid exists on their parcel, and they have full site control over their parking that they have. It's basically a no-touch zone, which is why we're not promoting any changes to that parcel. Macy's has site control not only over their building, but over the parking lots that they enjoy. And they've indicated to us that they're not willing to accept, there will be a reduction to their parking today, but not in these areas, that these are no-touch zones for them. Kohl's has also their area of control shown in blue up above. They control the upper deck of the parking behind them via the bridge that attaches on the second floor. The cinema controls the ground floor underneath, and that's shown in orange. But Kohl's also has site plan control over the parking lot in front of them. And again, they're not interested in any reduction in parking for their building. And they have 80,000 square feet there. They're not interested in anything that's going to reduce their parking in their area of control where their shoppers would park. So that starts to form where we develop and how we develop. When the Sears comes down, as shown behind the cinema there, that releases all site plan control back there, which is why we're proposing most of our residential development there. Well, for 2 reasons. One, it's adjacent to the existing residential that's there, so that makes sense. But also it's no longer under the control of Sears. So I just wanted everyone to be aware that, and I'd be happy to revisit this, but there are site plan controls on site today. This was our original submittal back in June of 2020. about 3 years ago. And where we were proposing, multifamily around the southern part of the site up against the residential, we were always proposing a separate affordable housing up there in parcel one next to next to parking structure. But our original proposal was no town center in the first phase of our development. We're very concerned about parking for our cinema and retail tenants. And so that wasn't part of our original proposal. Our phase two of our project where Macy's, and again, phase two is dependent upon Kohl's and Macy's deciding they no longer want to be a part of the project or continue on their leases. So that's important to remember too. We're not kicking anybody out. When they decide they're ready to leave, which we believe is probably sooner rather than later, Macy's isn't building any more 250,000 square foot department stores anymore. And I think the internet will tell us that that model is probably on its way out. So we think there is a time that comes in the future around 2040 where those tenants do go away or downsize or find other homes. And so that's why we've introduced these other phases. And originally, that's when we thought that's the appropriate time with those large tenants gone and their need for additional parking, we can then bring the town center into phase one. We heard a strong reaction from the community and from you that we want to see the town center as a part of phase one. So at that time, and then again, we continue to provide the town center as a part of phase one. It's changed in size since then. It's gotten larger. We've tried to integrate it into the open space area that Heather mentioned in front of the theater, connected via raised ballers that we can close for community events, weekend events, such as a concert series, start of a 5K, whatever event, car show, art show, that we can close that off to create an area that's close to 75,000 square feet in total area, close to 2 acres. But on a day-to-day basis, the intent is for that town center to function as a town square here as a part of phase one. The other major changes that we've made here is we heard strongly from the community that they didn't want the multifamily adjacent to the single family homes. So on the south end of the site in the middle, you see the addition of the change out to townhomes, and that still exists. We've now expanded that to 100 from 85 townhomes. We're up to 100. And we have some affordable by design units in there that we'll talk about at a future meeting about the residential and how that design works. But that was a big part of our change. When we got rid of those units, though, we had to find another place for them. And that's why we increased the size of parcel 4 up against the cemetery and a little bit on the back of parcel 3. That building actually steps up to 5 to 6 stories. We had to find those units somewhere else, and that's where that increased height came from. And again, we'll talk about the residential design at a future meeting. Then in phase 2, Heather talked about, we had some flexible units that we were proposing to have some flexibility in the future if the unit mixes change or the size of the units change. We built in like a 5% contingency for flex space. We were told that, well, we can't do that. If we want these units approved, we need to include them in the plan today. So essentially what we did was we added 100 units in parcel 6 and took out some from parcel 5, which is where the Macy's is. And the idea was to widen the street as you come in off Marydale, but to increase the number of units. The footprint really didn't change for parcel 6. The units just got taller, and that's a podium project. So where the other units are wrapped, where the parking structure is the middle and the units wrap around, parcel 6 is a true podium where we actually have 3 levels of parking surrounded by retail on the 2 sides, and the units are all up above on a podium above that. When talking with some of the community meetings that we had, people were telling us if we were going to have height in the project, they prefer it be away and up against the side of the hill. And remember there too, that parcel is set down from the street as you come around Northgate Drive up there. The Kohl's building actually sits down about 15-20 feet from the roadway. So the impact of the building, it's still on the inside of the site, but on Northgate Drive, there's less impact and there's no neighbors across the street. So those represent kind of our major changes. And we're going to talk about some more related to bike activity, but that's our revised site plan today. One other change that's important to remember, when we heard from DRB, originally we heard that you'd like to see the corner of Las Colinas and Northgate Drive held by a more substantial building. So we've moved a sit-down restaurant there. And so that was one of the changes too, that we've pushed a larger, more significant building to that hard corner to hold that corner better. And that we'll see that in some of our plans coming up. And this is just a second story plan. I mentioned the podium on parcel 6 up on Northgate Drive, and you can see that the amenity decks there actually sit up about level 3. This is where we spent a lot of our time. So when we met with the Planning Commission last November, they had been hearing loudly from Bike Coalition, WTBTAM, about the need for better pedestrian circulation, better bike circulation through the site. So we sat down with those, after hearing from Planning Commission, we sat down with those groups and we went over a long list of items they'd like to see. And we've been working very hard to modify our plan in conjunction with the city to make the plan better related to bike and peds. One of the biggest changes we made is in and around all the residential zones of the Southfield project, we had bike lanes on the street. And therefore our streets were wider because we not only had the traffic lanes, but we had 5 foot, 6 foot bike lanes on either side. So what we've done is we've brought those bike lanes up above the curb and created a shared path up above the curb around the residential unit. So there's an 11-foot shared path for peds and bikes. So the roadways get narrower because the bike paths are no longer on the street and they're up all along the residential, a lot safer. The other thing that we did is that in order to better and further the goals of safe streets to schools, we were really pushed by WTBTAM and the Bike Coalition to bring the multimodal path up Northgate Drive as far as Alphasian, where the connection to the schools are, so that all of the residences would have access to the multimodal path and up to that connection to the school, and then increase the connection across Northgate Drive. But we didn't have really room to do that. And so working with the Public Works here, we're actually going to narrow Northgate Drive. There's parking along the one side. There's a few parking spaces there. We're actually going to narrow the street and actually push the multimodal path out so that instead of, and get rid of the bike lane on the street. Let's take that back. There's still gonna be a bike lane on the street, but there's gonna be a full multimodal path that continues all the way around back up to Las Colinas, Northgate. That's now gonna extend up around to Alphasian. So that completes the multimodal path up to that street and connection to Smart Train from the affordable housing, all the townhomes and all the multifamily now have access to that multimodal path to connect to Smart Train. That was a big move. It took a lot. It doesn't sound like a big move, but it took a lot of civil trading to make public streets narrower, but that was a big part. We also, on that multimodal path, we also brought that back to the first intersection up along Northgate Drive. You see the dark purple here that continues along Northgate Drive. We've added class 2 bike lanes into the site from Northgate Drive. And then part of the DRB recommendation was to, as I come off Marydale and into the site towards the park, that's the multimodal path coming into the park, continuing over to the bike hub, and it transitions to an 11-foot shared path back into the residential to connect to all the shared paths now. And so the recommendation was to combine the pedestrian path and the bike path that comes off Marydale into one large multimodal path. We've done that now and increased the landscaping there. And again, the pedestrian connections are enhanced also by all of this because they're all on the shared paths. Lastly, I would add here that we work with the Bike Coalition to increase the number of bike racks at all the different facilities. They mentioned the bus transit. So all that's been greatly enhanced. Oh, there's also another shared path connecting the residential on the west side of the theater now that comes down as well into the town center. All of these changes took a lot of time. That's what extended our resubmittal to May, is to making all these changes on the site and making sure everything worked with our landscape plans, with our civil plans. And lastly, we discussed the raised tables. We just got confirmation that the fire department is okay with raised crosswalks. And so, which was news to us. And so we've committed to having our civil engineer look into where we can make that possible to make better where these multimodal paths are crossing roadways, where we can do speed tables, grade paths, etc. So we're still working on that. So if your recommendation is to look into it, know that we already are. I couldn't see it, so I'm assuming no one else could either.
And also a comment to the whole team, if when you come up here, if you can tell us what pages you're on, because we have this phone book here and it'd be nice to be able to follow along with that.
So all the page numbers in the lower right-hand corner.
I
Okay,
can't
great,
see
just
that.
read it to us.
I can't see it. So if you can tell us what they are, we could look here.
I'll do my best.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so now I'm on L31. And this is
They're not alphabetized.
and these are the street sections. These are the street sections I was just talking about within the residential development, showing the shared paths now up above the street. So we see the 11-foot shared paths on the one side, the 5-foot bifurcated sidewalk on the other. So all the residential now has the shared paths up above the street, which allows the streets to get narrower. This is Northgate Drive, where now the inside track, the inside lane of Northgate Drive This is L.
L35.
And so, and again, just showing that the multimodal path continues up now along Northgate Drive as far as Alphasian. Some changes we made in the park or the town square. Again, they mentioned we've rearranged some amenities out here. This is a highly amenitized area. We've got a pavilion for shade for outdoor eating during off hours. It turns into a stage for performances. We've got an outdoor, it's artificial lawn, but an outdoor gathering area for seating to listen to music or just to gather, throw a frisbee around. We've got a fountain. We do have a kids tot lot. We have some more natural, we don't have swing sets here. We've
What
tried.
page are you on?
L19A.
Thank you.
So we do have a tot lot area, but a more natural freeform up playground. Larkspur Landing has something similar. If you've been down there where they've got the big logs where the kids climb on, that's what we're proposing here. We're trying to kind of want to get away from just a swing set or a teeter totter or something like that. We're trying to create something a little more high end here. We do still have the dog park that's located on the edge. We just think we've done these before. They're fantastic community gathering areas with all the residents here. 50 or 60% will have some kind of a dog or cat. They come down here and they socialize. They ever come down, they bring the bottles of wine and they all hang out here. They get to know each other because when they all get home from work, they got to get something to do with the pet. So those are just really fantastic areas. And again, so per your comments, we have public restrooms now. Down in the parcel number 4, down below, we have our community room. And our library outlet. We've been working with the library. We asked them if they wanted to have relocate temporarily. They said, nah, we're fine just coming in. Tell us when you're ready for us and we'll open a branch here. And then our public restrooms are a part of that assemblage of rooms that'll be open to the public. Up behind shops 2A, up to the right here, we also have room for a police substation. So we're making that available to them, similar to what we have on site currently. And then of course we have our bike hub area that actually connects to the multimodal path and ends there in a bike fix-it station, a hub. We got a little cafe, pop-up, shops there. And there's our view, which you saw before. And again, relocating the screen from the cinema where it probably didn't make a lot of sense because of the landscape that we're planning there, and use that for watch parties when the sports come on and people want to go watch the sports and interact and hang out, a whole thing. Or we'll have a movie night, a kids movie that will play out there so people in the park. That was another part of this. Again, this is a privately maintained, built, amenitized town square, not a regional public park that's maintained, security provided by us, open to the public. And just a little about size. I get grief for this because we're not trying to replicate Healdsburg Town Square. We're just trying to give an example of size here. And so the idea is that we have a town square is essentially a city block. And so when we have city blocks that perform a civic function, they're about an acre plus in size is what we have. Same size as probably one of the most celebrated town squares in Bentonville, Arkansas. Same thing, same size, same size of a city block. So that's what we're trying to get to in terms of size. Okay, so shifting gears here a little bit to cinema, and I'll try to be quick here because I know we're eating up time. We're tearing down this is page RP2. And we're proposing this is the cinema. They're going to stay. They're going to completely remodel the entire inside of the cinema. At the same time, we're building for them their IMAX theater, the auditorium, and what you see on the lower right-hand corner. When we tear down the Sears to the left, they've got a lot of gingerbread around their exterior right now that we're going to clean up and redo the entire exterior of the building for them while they're working inside. But otherwise, the theater is going to stay where they are, but for the IMAX theater. And so that informs the exterior architecture. So where the Century Theater is on the upper left on RP4. Again, trying to create some visual interest, try to tie into the somewhat contemporary commercial architecture that we see through the rest of the center. The artwork that we're doing on the east side of the building up against residential, this has always been a part of our program. If done right, I think that elements like this add to the architecture. I always get a little nervous when you propose artwork as a part of the actual building instead of hiring an artist to do something like this. But it's subtle enough that we're comfortable that this is a successful part of the building architecture here. Love to get your input on that, but we think it works. We've done a lot of models and studies on it and think that that's actually a successful part of the building architecture. As Heather had mentioned, in the back of the building, they're actually proposing to do some party rooms and that those have windows on those now, that we're providing trellises and shade structures. When we move the bike paths to the south side of the street, that allows us a larger landscape strip behind the building. And so it's not, we didn't show it here, you wouldn't see the back of the building, but we've got a heavily landscape now, the back behind the theater of the building that's across the street from the townhomes. So the idea is to provide lush landscaping up against the back of the theater to help soften that feel as you drive through that neighborhood. Up against we have some signage up against the parking structure. We've worked with our architects at FPA to try to create kind of a balance of kind of there's some patterning in the stucco that's on there with some soft colors. We've got material boards here to see how that works. So in all, we're just trying to bring down the scale a little bit of the building, try to make it so that it fits in. There's a lot of landscaping around it, not so much to hide the building, but just to really create a nice landscape for the surrounding streets and neighborhood. And that's what it looks like from the front. So again, these trees grow taller. This is the bike hub area that this is the area I talked about. We can close with the bollards for events space. The covered area through the middle of the mall is going to remain as their entrance. They're going to keep that and amenitize that with ticket sales and food and beverages. And we've got a shop building there with restaurants and shops in front on the other side. We can talk about this. The idea is that the Kohl's building for now is staying in phase one. We have a lot of different plans. They've talked about downsizing, but haven't committed to it. We know that Restoration Hardware wants to stay in the site. They might move to the second floor. We have other tenants that like to be on the second floor. If indeed Kohl's pulls this is and so a lot of these plans depend on who wants to come in and does Kohl's want to commit to downsizing. Otherwise, we have some new paint schemes for the buildings, some other signage that might be possible. But for now in phase one, Kohl's is staying. And we're happy they are. They provide a great retail draw and they support the smaller shop tenants there. This has not changed, but for one of the comments we heard from DRB that thought that we really ought to have an awning over top of our south facing glass, which we've now added. Otherwise, there hasn't been much change to the shops to a building. Again, it's expressing a contemporary type design. We're trying to stay fresh with retail trends, and we think this is a nice fit for what's already there. We are proposing a remodel to the existing row of shops where the Pete's Coffee is and the over there, and that's in your package. And it's really new awnings, fresh paint colors, sign package, but that's in your package. So, without further ado, I've got a quick animation I want to show you. We're trying to, before you start it, we're trying to give you a feel for the project, the scale. We know that people have been looking to have something that's more visual, that they can get a sense of the scale of the project. So we've been working with an animation expert to help try to create that. So if you don't mind pushing the play button, we'll just let this play. It's going to start over at the corner of Las Colinas and Northgate Drive. And full screen. Project and the former Macy's residential building. We have Rite Aid in front of us.
In the microphone, Dave.
So we're coming down soon to be the Marydale intersection into the project. And we'll see the widened aspect of the building. So we see residential 6 in the distance here, trying to create a tower as a focal point coming into the town square. And there's our revised, our enhanced screen there. Here's our, the bike hub here in front of the cinema. For the lights, there's our revised entrance into the theater. You see the hills beyond and the affordable housing. This is retail building 6 with downstairs retail, residential up above. There's our shops 2A that we just saw. And coming back to the residential that will take the place of Macy's, our enhanced paving in this area. And then we see retail 4 and the multimodal path coming into the park. And then ending here in the park. I know that was short, but the idea is to give a general idea of kind of what the plan feels like for the commercial component. And with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have after public comment. And again, I would remind you that our entire team is here as well to answer any questions you have on that. All right.
Now it's time for the board to ask questions of the applicant. Member Blaney, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I got lots.
Only if you need more information. That's what this is about, is getting more information.
Right. I
exactly what
guess
you
I
want.
don't have a whole lot of questions. A couple of comments. I guess I was hoping to see that town square much larger than what's presented. I know you're relating to other plazas, but I think it needs to be twice the size.
Chair Kowalski, if I may just, I think this would be a good time to have questions of staff for the applicant and then accept public comments. And if the board is ready to deliberate on the project, then they would do that at this time.
This is informational. We're not giving opinions at this time. We're just asking more questions to understand more fully.
Oh, just questions. Okay, I'll be back. If I read this right, that IMAX theater they're going to rebuild is right up against the town square.
It's
Is it in that corner of the building?
It's part of the existing theater building. It'll be adjacent. It's where the food
Well,
court exists today.
I'm just questioning the sound that emanates from these things.
Zero.
Is
You
it
don't hear
good?
anything from the outside.
Nothing?
Nothing.
That's the only question I had.
Okay, Member Summers?
Yeah, this is one of those ones that's gonna be hard to ask questions without it bleeding into comments. So
Do your
let
best.
me do my best. Hang on a second here. I actually was typing a few things out. Had you looked at on that east elevation of the theater building? I know there's the artwork being proposed. Have you I hate when we take buildings and put awnings and tack things onto them because it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. However, have you tried it? Did you try some, maybe it's such a big, flat, tall wall that I don't know if you guys had attempted to add some architectural elements, some awnings, things.
We did.
Okay.
We did. And we land because of our desire to add the shared path along the side of that building,
Mhm.
which really is taking up 11 feet of area for landscaping. We didn't have the room to add more architectural elements and what to the building. So it's,
Yeah.
what can we do to the side of the building that would still enhance the building, also view from the residential across the street, but knowing that we had to give up what would typically be the landscape area for that shared bike lane. It was a compromise, and
Yeah.
we thought this was our solution to that.
Sure. Yeah, my concern was actually the townhomes across the way. So, okay, so you did play with that.
Absolutely.
Had you explored, because you're gonna hear a theme of people wondering about the town square size. I noticed things like this public lawn across the way and, the bocce area. To me, those, I don't know if you had explored shifting some of the parking over into those areas in an effort to make the actual core town square larger, because, we're not going to plant a public lawn anymore, frankly, with the water. It's going to be artificial grass, and it's going to
It
probably
is gonna
be
be artificial. You're
absolutely,
correct.
yeah, it's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
So, so there's opportunities there that we can talk about later. So again, I just don't know, this is more question time. I don't know if you guys had explored those ideas or not.
After the planning commission hearing, we did actually run a series of explorations on how we could change the parking, shift parking. The challenge that we had was that in the second phase, the building footprint occupies that green spot you saw next to the Coles today.
Got it. It's a
And so because
placekeeper.
that goes away, if we put parking there, which we explored, that same area goes away. And so we're left with how do we provide adequate parking for the cinema and the shops that are around there
In the
and-
future.
and today,
Yeah.
even in phase one, and quite frankly, in order to get a deal done with the theater and these different tenants, that they require a certain percentage of parking. We would reduce parking if we could, but based on our lease language, these tenants have minimums in their leases for what we have to provide. And so,
Well, that leaves a question.
Yeah.
Can't leases be renegotiated? I mean, we got a lot of
Everyone
clever
says-
lawyers and
everyone says
and
that,
and
and the answer,
and people these days that can hammer things out. I mean,
In a
let's be real. I mean,
in a
there's got to
per-
be some way of negotiating. I would think.
in a perfect world, yes, but the tenants, their parking requirements are tantamount. That's one thing that's non-negotiable to these guys. Show me where my parking is going to be on a busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, where my patron's going to park. And if you can't provide them those parking spots, these aren't just mom and pops. On a national tenants, they know how many parking spots they need. And if you can't show them where those parking spots are, they will not stay.
These
And
are
that's
exactly the guys we got to beat
So-
up. But besides that, can you point me towards
I'm sorry.
Let's do public
there'll be
comments
time for
later.
Public comments later.
question, and I'm sorry, I haven't studied your site plan enough to know, where is this drive-through restaurant that I'm hearing people talk about being proposed?
we're proposing, we don't have tenants today,
Right.
but we're proposing up along, if you can bring up a site plan, Jeff.
Yeah.
Along Las Colinas, 2 of those pads are proposed to be drive-throughs.
Okay.
And so 2 of the pads are proposed to be drive-throughs.
I just want to know.
Yeah,
where-
along Las
where
Colinas.
on the show.
You'll need a 2040 plan.
Okay.
There you go. So it'll be pads 2 and 4.
Which is,
So
okay, I got it.
2 is at the entrance, 4 is that spot.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, those are my questions for now, and I'm sure we'll have lots of talking
Happy
there.
to answer anything. Yeah.
Member Alexin?
So in general, understanding that you said that the parking for Macy's and Kohl's is what it is. Are you allowed to add trees or reconfigure that at all?
Yes, as long as we don't affect the parking count or the general circulation in there, they don't object to having, improvements done in their lot.
And then on that subject too, are there improvements to the exteriors for Macy's and Kohl's as part of the plan?
There is for Kohl's, but there's not currently for Macy's. They haven't asked for any. We don't necessarily see the need to do much to that building now. I mean, we could but it would be a gift to them.
Okay, we'll save comments. Then, so in Terra Linda, the summer temperatures can often be over 90. So I'm curious how providing ample shade and making sure that enough of the trees are shade trees was considered.
Absolutely. And so we have, there are certain requirements that we need to provide a shade coefficient related to the trees and how fast they grow, and X% over so many years. A landscape architect can answer those specifically, but absolutely shade was considered when size of trees, where they're planted, where people are going to congregate in outdoor areas was definitely considered.
And then was that also considered for exterior restaurant dining?
Yeah,
sort of
most of our outdoor dining has some kind of shade structure as well. Our sidewalks, based on the pandemic and our tenants, what they believe their future needs will be to provide more outdoor space for their patrons, are the spaces around the exterior of these tenants and around the town center is wider than it typically would be provided. And the idea is that we can provide more outdoor seating, which is partially covered by shade structures that you see around the buildings. They get covered by umbrellas, and there's a lot of landscaping around that area as well.
And then how literal are the fountain designs in this project, or are they just sort of represent?
They're placeholders.
Okay.
We have it. Yeah, they're conceptual design. We know about where we want them. We know about, they're not going to be walk in, get wet type thing. They're going to be reach and touch people, as far as the design. So, but it's conceptual.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, has any consideration been given to walk in, get wet, given again, the heat factor in that area of the city?
It brings with it a whole host of issues related to now you have what's considered a public pool, and now you're dealing with the health department and what you have to, and how you're maintained and the facilities you need to provide for walk-in water. We tend to shy away from that. We tend to shy away. As long as you have water that people can touch and splash in, that seems to be a draw enough. And still provide the sound of the fountain, the sound of the water. So we like that.
Okay, and then last, for now, I know we're supposed to focus on, this is my first meeting since I'm new to the
Congratulations.
board.
My
but
first
thank you.
DRB in person too.
First meeting on Northgate, I've been here for a year, but anyway, so did you bring the materials for the new paving that we're supposed to absorb?
I don't believe, well, the paving it's stamped asphalt. So the process is you heat up the pattern, whether it's a herringbone or brick or stone, and then the slur, because you have to slurry seal paving. The slurry seal then has a different color to it, so that it has the impression of brick paving. But it's a great road surface for cars to drive on, and it lasts forever. So
Is that something we'll be able to see?
yeah,
Maybe even a
absolutely.
photograph?
I think we
before
can. Well, I don't know if I can't get a sample, we'll definitely have photographs of real life situations of where we use it a lot in our centers. So I could drive to any one of our centers and take pictures and show you.
Okay.
Good.
I have some
Okay,
questions.
good.
I'm wondering of what you've done to mitigate the sound and smell in the dog park.
So it's regular maintenance. So the smell, there's regular maintenance in the dog park, and we actually go in and clean the surface and disinfect, because obviously we don't want any perpetuation of diseases, what have you. The sound is dogs. The sound of dogs playing. So we're not proposing to mitigate any of the sound of the dogs. We haven't found that to be a problem. We've done a huge dog park down in Mountain View at our project there on El Camino Real. And the dog park is probably twice the size of this here. And it's very busy and crowded and full of dogs. And during the day, it's not something that happens in the middle of the night. The dog park's closed, but during the day, it's the sound of no more busy than I would say, or louder than people playing in the park. And it's popular. So no, we're not providing any mitigation for sound of the dog park.
Okay. And you said that you want to be like a normal town square, right? That's what you're trying to, and you
Not
showed us
normal. I think
Sonoma.
exceptional would be my.
I would love
yeah,
exceptional as
yeah.
well. So I can't think of a single town square that has a parking lot on it. Town squares are really, they're surrounded by a street and then there's retail. So I would love for this to be more like that. So I'm just wondering, have you explored, looking at other town squares and how town squares are done and why they're effective, because they have retail all around them?
We've done extensive studies of other centers, and what we have here is a very unique situation that we're tearing apart an existing mall and trying to create a hybrid product. And with that hybrid product is the need to provide parking. And what we don't have is additional areas to filter that part. We don't want to force the parking into the neighborhoods, because one of the biggest complaints we get is in the residential neighborhoods, there's no place to park, or the parking everywhere. So we want those, we don't want to force the parking into those areas. So we have to provide for that retail parking in very limited areas. And so that's what forces us to come up with a unique situation to have not only the park or the town square amenity, but to actually have available parking for the tenants that are around it, because we don't have the bleed off parking around that we can send the people to.
Did you
That's the
explore a parking garage? Because you could go up.
So we did. So we looked at going up in our existing parking structure, and the structure is of an age where we would have to tear it down to rebuild it in order to get additional floors.
Doesn't have to be that location.
And so yes, and to be quite honest, cost is a factor. That parking structures probably cost, $40,000 a stall. So you talk about providing a parking structure for, 500 cars, you're talking $25 million. And that's just a cost that this project can't absorb.
And I heard you say that the ground floor of the current parking structure is for the cinema. Is that right? And what percentage of their parking is there? How much?
Well,
Is it half? Is it?
It's, I would say more than half. There's probably 230, 240 stalls. That represents about 2/3 of their parking.
So that's good. So then this parking right here in the town square doesn't have to be there for the cinema.
It has to be there for some of the cinema, but not all, certainly not all of it. And it
It's
has
just
to be
in the
there for
parking
other,
garage, I
for other
understand.
shops, it's really for the other shops and restaurants that are also around that parking area that need a place to park as well. So we anticipate that, our parking is going to be full, on a busy Friday or Saturday.
I'm wondering, I see the list of the residential architect and the landscape architect. Who is the overall site plan architect?
We all come together, the site, I would say I am the control of the overall site design, knowing the different constraints and opportunities through the different tenants and through through basically the project management. That's me.
Oh, okay, and what are your qualifications for
I'm
that?
a licensed architect with the state of California, have been for the last 30 years, been practicing retail architecture since 1993, 94.
Okay,
And working for Malone Guy Partners since 1997. This is what I do.
so this is your design.
This is what I do. Yes.
And so when you've got 40-foot walls backing up to housing, how do you normally suggest to kind of mitigate that?
Well, it's an existing building, and that's our challenge. And so through the architecture, working with Phil Paoli, the architect here, who actually did the redesign of the mall back in 2009. The idea is, okay, we have an existing theater, and how do we actually look at setbacks and pulling buildings away, scale, landscaping, design, how we treat the actual streetscape, orientation of the building to where the sun angles are going to be. The wall, we wouldn't, the theater will not be blocking any of the sun because on the north side of the buildings, it's not blocking any of the sun from any of the neighbors. So none of these guys are going to be in shade because of the theater. So we look at all those things when we come up with the design.
Oh, because I see a number of just sheer walls, so I guess it's in production.
The walls of the theater, what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the existing walls of the theater as they exist today. And so there's a mansard roof on those today. Again, obviously one side sits up against the Sears building. So when that comes away, we have to address the design of that wall. But that's the existing theater building. So
That you'll be improving
that we're going to be improving.
with some design.
That's correct.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Right there.
Oh, I didn't see it. Can you tell me the page, please?
Yeah, it's
Of the sheer walls on the theater
I've got
in
it
the
right
back.
You mean the elevations?
Yeah,
They're in here.
yeah, I know.
I forget.
Yeah, he's gonna tell us.
so they're on RT4,
RT4.
and then there's renderings on RT5.
Okay, RT4. So the east elevation, it has sparse trees and a brickwork.
Well, I wouldn't use this plan
So this is
For-
not the best, not the latest.
it is the latest.
Oh.
Let me finish. I would not use this for representation for landscaping. The idea was to show trees here, but this is not the full built out landscape. If we put the full landscape in, you wouldn't be able to see the building. So the idea is to show a representation of trees where the trees will be planted, but this is not a good representation for the landscape, but it is a good representation for the building architecture.
I recommend we do both.
We can certainly do that.
Yeah, because I can't see landscaping here. Is there an elevation with the landscaping?
We did not draw an elevation of the trees against the building because you wouldn't see the building. You just have an elevation of the trees.
Mm.
And so we typically don't show elevations of just the landscape architecture.
Oh, I think people might be interested to see what the trees are going to look like next to the building.
We can certainly modify it's certainly easy to change and certainly easy to add the trees against the building full scale. We actually go back and forth with planning about that because when we show it, then we say, oh, we can't see the building. So
Just show both. So here's one with trees, here's one without
we can
trees.
certainly do that.
That would be great.
If I read this correctly, along that south edge of the cinema, that's only a 11-foot strip, isn't it?
Up against the back of the building. I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Between the curb and the back of the building.
So is that where you're talking about doing some articulation to the building to help?
No, that's for
Minimize
landscape.
that?
So you're talking about south end of the building?
Yeah.
That's all for landscaping.
Well, it's only 11 feet.
That's correct.
Can't get a very big tree in there.
You got a really big tree in there. So, well, you can. I mean, we'll be more than happy to take I'm not gonna argue. We can have a conversation with the landscape architect, talk about the type of trees, what size they grow to.
Well,
and maybe that'd be a
I know there
more
was a
robust
comment made that we're gonna rely on landscaping to mitigate. Well, it's not always, I'm a landscape architect. That doesn't always work.
It-
So I think.
it wouldn't be, it
I
wouldn't.
guess we're looking at something, I don't want to argue the point.
Right.
We're looking at something going on with that wall, especially in that area. That's the most critical area.
So it's a combination. We're not intended to hide the building with landscaping. We're intended to provide a nice design for the back of the building.
Yeah.
With its modular forms and colors and control joints and windows and trellises. In addition to that, we are going to have landscaping behind there as well to enhance then the back of the building.
Perfect.
That, that's,
We are looking
Let
forward
me-
to seeing it.
Let me ask, at the top of the
It's
town.
my
square-
time.
Oh,
I was in the middle.
I thought you said you're done. I'm sorry.
I was wondering about the square footage for the farmer's market.
of the area between the bike hub and the park.
That's it. So it's not the current farmer's market, it's some other farmer's market you're going to place there.
Yeah, it would be available for those functions. And whether it is, it's not the size of the Civic Center farmers. We're not trying to replace that. What we're saying is that maybe on an off day or a different day, if we want to have an event there, whether it's an art show, a car show, maybe again, to combine, the idea is that by putting the bollards up, we combine the bike hub area that's in front of the theater and the park to create a walkable connection between the two areas. And so it's a paved area, so it's a perfect area to park food trucks or set up stands or park cars like
3 or
sports
4
car
could
show.
go there, right?
What now?
3 or 4 could go there?
Cars?
3 or 4 food trucks. They could,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
could find
we-
your elevation, I would.
So
know the
I would
number.
go to the plan view or the enlargement of the park.
Mhm,
And so,
okay.
yeah, easily 3 or 4 food trucks. In addition to those food trucks is for canvas tents or for cars or for easels. It's an
So it's
event
a
space.
Small area.
It's probably about 13 to 15,000 square feet.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, for a
Give me
small,
a page number so I can take a look at what that looks like.
RT5 is the rendering.
And yeah, L19A is the site plan. Look up on the screen as well.
yeah, here it is.
Okay.
So you see, it's about the size of the bike hub, which is about 13,000 feet. And it connects the larger park, the 1.1 acre park and the bike hub.
Okay, I don't think we should call it a farmer's market because it's not the farmer's, like the Thursday's farmer market is now
wouldn't call
in
it
the
a
mall.
farmer's market. I
Okay.
would call it it's a connection, it's a flex space. And that flex space allows us to connect the bike hub with the park for a larger event. Let's say, again, a couple thousand person event or a music series. We can close that off to have food truck to serve the park. So it's a flex space that we can bollard off to allow pedestrians to flow between there that's closed to car traffic. That's what I would call it.
I see. Okay. I'm going to reopen it up to see if people, I think more questions have bubbled up, so I'm going to give the board another opportunity. Let's start again.
I'm just trying to understand, above the park area, there's a building. It's major 4, shop 6. Although on L36, it's major 1 and shops 1. So I don't understand the numbering. My question is, are those existing tenants or those are hopeful tenants someday?
In the existing Kohl's building,
Well, again, on SD 12, that's major 4, residential partial 6, shops 6.
I believe you're referring to phase 1, and those are potential shop tenants. Again, this goes to if Kohl's were to downsize or to leave, we have the potential for additional shop space facing that park area.
Okay. I was just wondering about the labeling. I just didn't know if they were existing or,
They're not existing.
Okay.
That's the Kohl's. The Kohl's occupies the full 80,000 square feet today.
got it.
Is that the end of your questions?
I guess the reason why I was questioning is I was wondering if that parking from below those buildings could move up and we could get that town square twice the size.
Except for that in phase 2, that entirety of the parcel 6 becomes residential. And so whether that's parking or open space or shops goes away. And so the need for parking still exists in the park area. So we can't just, we actually looked at a scheme where we converted that park area to parking. But the problem is and that works for phase one, but when phase two comes along, then that whole area becomes residential and you need the parking back.
One last question, how sure are we of phase two and phase three?
Well, there's not a phase three, there's only phase two. So there's the
Okay.
2025 plan and the 2040 plan. The phase two plan only happens if Kohl's and or Macy's vacates. And so the phase one plan is what we're sure of. The phase two plan happens in the eventuality of one or both of either Kohl's or Macy's leaving. We were asked to do this 3 years ago when we were presenting just a phase one. The city council asked and the plan staff asked, hey, we want to see more, we want to see what would happen if if some of these other tenants were to leave, which, to be quite honest, we expect eventually will happen. And so that's why we generated a phase two plan.
Okay.
And I would just like to say for the board, in looking at this site plan, it's pretty extensively planted. I was looking for areas we could add. I don't see many.
Okay.
And it's gotten better. I mean, in response to comments, we've made a lot of changes to our landscape plans in response to comments that we've received.
Okay. Okay,
I have more
Member
questions.
Summers.
Thank you. I think some of the confusion is because I saw him looking at the same pages. There seems to be some inconsistencies on what's been labeled as 2040 vision plan. On one page, it actually shows where the residential 6 building is still a parking lot. You go to the next page and there's a building on it. So there's some confusion for me at least.
We'll try to clean that up.
Yeah, so that's why I started getting confused. Well, why don't we just move some more parking over there? And I turned the page, which is also labeled 2040, and it's actually a building. So there's
Apologize.
some confusion,
Okay.
which I think was getting him as well. That being said, I mean, residential building 6 isn't like locked in terms of its design today. It doesn't have to be. If 15 years from now, we're designing a building over there that needs some ground level parking with residential up. I don't know why we just couldn't do that in order to shift some parking. So about parking, because that was my next question, honestly. And first of all, this might help all of us understand it. You know, we're talking in terms of square feet and how many trucks can fit there and whatnot. Can you give me a dimension? Like as we start going down adjacent to the cinema, how many feet is it? What's the actual dimension and length of this park by width? Is it 200 feet? Is
We
it?
actually have an exhibit there. If you could.
'Cause I didn't see any dimensioned plans on the size of the square.
So actually,
Yeah.
let me give you the sheet number.
That just gives me better perspective to say, hey, it's
Absolutely.
100 feet or 200 feet or whatever. Square feet can be misleading.
So go back to my presentation. I'm looking for this slide with a Healdsburg transfer, so that gives dimensions.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And so the park itself is about 187 feet wide and about 200 and it varies a little bit on one side, about 225 to 250 feet long.
Okay, so 200 by 200
It's
roughly.
it's
Okay.
approximate city block.
All right, thank you. Parking. There's been some discussion by staff and we've talked a whole heck of a lot about where all these cars go and tenants need cars. Based on the city's standard, and if you don't know the answer, maybe staff can chime in. In the overall vision in 2040, is this project still way over the city's requirements,
It's
way
over.
under the city's requirements, right at the city's requirements? Where are we landing?
It's over.
Way over. Why? Because of some tenants, some leases? mean,
It's based on the law. If Macy's commands so much parking today, that if Macy's goes away, then their parking, we don't need as many stalls to park them. But we haven't gone in and filled in all of the parking lot with retail required parking. So our retail, we have less retail than the parking that shows on the phase two plan. But the opposite is true in phase one. In phase one, because of the Kohl's size and Macy's, we're underparked based on not only what the REA is for the mall and under our PD zone, we're underparked for.
Okay, so phase one has the site underparked even by the city standards, and then ultimately someday, maybe it's actually overparked.
That's correct.
Now, are we just speaking about commercial parking there, the residential
Commercial.
you've
The-
taken care of?
The residential parking is parked at an average of like 1.75 stalls per the city code. in all.
It meets
in all
code.
specs. It does,
Okay.
in all phases. So
All
we're
right,
just, we're just talking about the
so-
commercial. That's correct.
So in the initial phase, we may be underparked. We don't have an overabundance of parking. Okay, that answers my question. So thank you.
Member election.
Couple more. So, is there any plan for some sort of decorative street lighting or for the perimeter and the bike paths? Are you relying on city street lights or and inside just the glow from the buildings? Because I don't see any street lamps represented.
We have an extensive pedestrian street lighting program, which not only has banners, seasonal banners on them, but we do have extensive pedestrian lighting through the center with decorative lights. That should be, maybe you can tell me what page that's on.
Okay, I was
LT
trying to
1, 2,
find
and
it.
3. And that shows the pedestrian street lighting plan, and that's throughout the center.
It's
Okay.
it's the last 3 pages of the 300-page document.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you.
that helps.
You had to work for it.
Give 1 sec.
I have to go to the gym.
And I apologize for the size of the package, but
Yeah.
it just.
Well, thank you for finding it though.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Okay,
focus.
I found it.
Well, it also goes to that, all of these smaller details that, we're talking about bigger picture. The smaller
yeah.
details have been worked out, from landscape plans to lighting plans to floor plans, and we even have a trash management plan. So it's all,
Okay.
it's all been,
Okay, we'll take a look at that. It's
Yeah,
new
it's there. It's
information.
in
We'll have to take a look. If
One-
there are one
one
more
last one.
question,
Yeah.
I think we should move on to public comment.
Good. So, in the green space, excuse me, outside of major one, and I think it's represented on RT9. It's just sort of a big open sort of field. I just wondered if you had looked at maybe providing a more shaded open space there.
good comment. The idea was, so Ounces sits up against the mall on the west side today with a large open field that's utilized for soccer, some soccer games and those events. The idea was that this same, when we flop this over to up against Kohl's, the idea was to replicate the uses. Ounces moves over there, so do the fields move over there. So the idea was simply to recreate the same thing that exists today on the west side of the mall when we bring the road through there now to connect to the parking structure for better access around the park when the mall comes down. Those same uses and same tenants, they flop over to the other side. So it was intentional to have just the grass area because that's what exists today and is used today for the concerts or soccer that's being played out there. That it has a use, it has a utility.
Mhm.
And so happy to look at other designs if that's if that's the desire, but that was our intention. It was not just a mistake. Oh, throw green grass down there. It was intentional.
Understood. It's not a very large area. It's not.
It's
enough to-
about the size that it is today.
Okay, does that wrap up the DRB's questions? I think we're ready to open up to staff unless planning has something else to say.
Thank you.
3-minute, 5-minute break.
Oh, and you know what? Let's take a 5-minute break. What time is it now?
7:49.
7:49. We'll be back let's be back at 8 o'clock.
Oh.
I know. 8 minutes. We'll call you and then you raise your hand and they'll call you and you'll come up here and talk to us and sign it. Yeah. Planning will describe the whole process after the break. Right. I swore there. Around the old, and the whole plan is to like do Brooklyn. That's the plan.
Yeah, I understand that they're working on this, but they are redesigning the facade.
That's
so
right.
It needs to be more. nice
Yeah.
And more inviting. And this would be.
I feel like we should be talking for the brown thing.
Oh, you're right. You're- We could talk about that it's a little warm in here.
It is a little warm and I'm very happy to have a cup of water. I can't believe they provide us water in their cup.
I actually was ribbing, what's his name?
Yeah.
Micah, no,
Oh.
the finance guy said,
Oh.
look, we're probably carrying a lot of expensive.
Yeah.
Could we set paper cups?
You tell them the chair brought paper cups for everybody.
For a gigantic business, they did a good job finding it and making it as organized, but the numbering page system
Terrible.
is terrible. Like,
Terrible.
it-
And we
it
have
just-
to, I'm gonna demand that we have a regular number. It has to go 1 through 3. You know, it's going order.
200, yeah.
Yeah, we can't like, oh, it's the RTs, it's the,
Yeah, it makes it.
makes it.
Yeah. We having fun?
I know you have. In fact, if you have mountain, if you go to Mountain View, that your sample board have all the colors. Yeah. All you have. Yeah. Right. Yes, good amount of people online.
You can gavel.
3 minutes till the meeting resumes. These are the jokes.
You know, he knows my position on these hybrid meetings. They need to go away. COVID's over.
Okay, the meeting is back in session. I'd like to open the public comment. I'd like to make a comment first. I'm going to make a comment and then planning staff will tell everyone how the process works and they will run that process. I would like to let you guys know that you'll have 2 minutes to speak. There will be a timer counting down so you can keep track of how long you've got, and we will hold you to the 2 minutes so we can get everybody's comments in. Additionally, we would like to keep focus on these comments. The planning staff manages parking, things like that. What we're responsible for and what we can have comments on are design and color, and planning staff will detail exactly what it is we can help you with. And since you have 2 minutes, it would be lovely if you could focus on our issues. Everyone has parking questions. It's not our purview. Okay, I'd like to hand to the planning staff now.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll let Jeff provide the process for providing public comment, but just to reiterate, that's correct. Your purview is design focused. So we're asking our public commenters to focus on that, Chair. And And yet a future date with the planning commission and city council, the public can provide input on policy items that you mentioned. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to.
Okay, so we'll let the members of the public in the council chambers provide public comment first. And then once everybody in the chambers who's provided comment who wants to, will then open it up on Zoom. At such time that we open up to Zoom, if you're participating through Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. If you're participating by phone, you can press *9. Once you hear notification that the host is inviting you to speak, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. With that, do we have any public comment? Yeah, if you want, you could, I think, start forming a line.
Thank you for opening this to the public, to the neighbors. Are you starting my time? Given the fact that form follows function and that this is a design review group to whom we're talking, I have two questions, one of which has to do with the fact that the residential component of this site is by far the largest portion of the site. And there has been absolutely no discussion about the aesthetics or the planning around the residential portion. We're concerned, a number of us who live in the neighborhood are very concerned about the impact of the density of the residential structures, but I understand this is not the place to discuss that in terms of traffic flow and so forth. That's another meeting. But I'm very concerned, I think many of us are, about the aesthetics of the residential site. Where is the parking for those residential structures? Why not underground? Why not ground floor, etc.? So a lot of questions. And why does this meeting not undertake to discuss those aspects of the site, since the residential is such a huge portion of it? My second question, very quickly, has to do with the nature of the retail and dining facilities that will be going in there. Are there going to be strong designated standards for the type of retail that is going in? I just learned for the first time tonight that there will be 2 drive-through restaurants. Will they be fast food restaurants? Will they be the kind of restaurants that we want in our community, in our neighborhood, in our residential area? And will there be a focus, and I believe there should be, on local retail? In other words, no chain. There should be, I feel strongly, prohibition against any kind of chain retail structures. I think local people who have a stake in the community will help to ensure, let's say, the usability of the space and the integration of it into a neighborhood feeling. And I think I've used up my time.
Thank you. I'd like to just comment, there's another meeting coming up for residential. It was just such a large topic. You separated. Maybe planning can tell us when the residential meeting is.
Chair, I would recommend that you accept all the public comments, and at the end of the public hearing, staff is happy to provide some comments, response time.
That's such a hugely important part.
There will be a meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And we ask that you provide your name when you provide public comment. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Susan Coleman. I'm a 20-year resident of Terra Linda. I'm also a member of Responsible Growth in Marin, but tonight I'm speaking for myself. So I just had some questions that do relate a little to parking, not as to flow or anything like that, but I'm wondering if we're not working off of outdated models for retail and parking spaces, given that we're facing such a huge decline of retail at the mall anyhow. I'm confused as to why we're still looking at so much parking when there's a need for more open space. I walk by that mall frequently and it is never struggling with parking, ever. It's wide open. So that's one of my questions. Another one is the height of the cinema. There's been a lot of mention about how big and high that will be and how they should be doing some stuff to soften that. And for a later discussion, boy, the residential is so much bigger. And I hope I'll look forward to us addressing that. I'm a little concerned finally about the dog park and its how close it is to the kid park. I'm just wondering if it's going to be possible to keep the kids and the dogs not overexcited. And you've got a lot of dogs doing a lot of stuff on that space right next to a kid play area, which seems a little funky to me. I understand and appreciate that there's thought to both things, but I'm just wondering if there might be a buffer in between, something, because the dogs are going to get excited seeing kids running and the kids are going to get excited, not to mention the dog use of that space. So thank you very much for my opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Next, please say your name.
Yes, my name is Susan Windman. I'd like to mention, I'd like to ask some questions and give some comments. I'm concerned about the size of the buildings, and I'm wondering about the white, the large spans of white. And I'm wondering, perhaps by using maybe earth tones or some white reflects light, and there's this reflection, and when it's hot outside, it's almost like we're getting neon or we're getting hit by this blast. And I would love to see some exploration of maybe some earth tones, simplicity, some using color to maybe reduce the span, how the large those buildings are. And you can use color or tones to do that. I'm very concerned for safety regarding pedestrian and the bikes. I'm a pedestrian and I'm a cyclist, but I am a pedestrian. And really the two do not mix. I'm very concerned, especially with these motorized bicycles now on and on. I'm extremely concerned about going bikes. How much people will be pedaling bikes throughout the whole site? And what about the pedestrians? So I think that needs to be explored more. I would be interested in knowing something more about the businesses. I thought there was a discussion about maybe a grocery store, or I'm wondering what's happening to the existing businesses like Pete's. And so I'm concerned about weather. Right now we have something covered, but we have really a lot of heat and we have a lot of rain. And what is going to be the use of getting to the retail when we have such major types of weather events? And maybe we'll never see those weather events, but I have a feeling they're going to continue. And will people actually be coming to the retail portions when we're having those 17 atmospheric rivers, events like that, or this hot heat, which could expand? So
Thank you.
thank
Time's
you.
up. Next,
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been
your name,
said.
please.
Oh, Lori Brighter.
Please, one.
Okay. I'm concerned about green open space. We're calling it green, but it's astroturf. It's hot. Lots of hot surfaces create more hot air in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is not used to such a huge development in its midst. We're a nice, peaceful neighborhood with lots of wildlife and nature, and that's what we live around there. We expect it to continue in our neighborhood. It's 2% of Terra Linda space, and it's going to be adding 40% of more population from on top of what's already there, which is really concerning in such a small space. We want to continue protecting the wildlife and nature that we came here for. Hold on. It's out of character and scale for the neighborhood. It's offensive. I want to see story poles. I want local businesses. I want nature education at the mall. I don't want astroturf. There are other turf, natural turf possibilities and possibly maybe an canopy over the green space could save some of the heat loss and create an attractive environment. And I think one of the reasons that the mall is failing is because of the bad businesses, the ugly businesses that were there.
Thank
And
you.
if you had beautiful businesses, people would come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, my name is Janet Shirley. I've lived in northern San Rafael for 25 years, and it takes me 5 minutes to walk to the Northgate Shopping Mall. I've been there many, many times, and it used to be a very vibrant hub of community activity, and slowly over time, it's become like a ghost town. So I just wanted to bring up some points, and for me, it's hard to tease out what is design and what is not. For me, it's all design if we're talking about this new site. So if I'm redundant or this isn't the place for some of these items, forgive me, but for me, it has to do with design. The introduction of 5 to 7 story buildings is completely out of sync for the neighborhood and does not conform in any way to the surrounding neighborhood. Bringing 5 to 7 story apartment buildings to our neighborhood will ruin the aesthetic and architectural character of Terra Linda for decades. The plan needs to include a much larger town square. For this incredible site of this size, the town square is just too small. It needs to be twice the size. I don't know, I'm not an architect, but I know it can be done. I know it could be increased and doubled in size, and it would be so much better for people. Terra Linda currently has no viable meeting spaces for residents to congregate at this time. I mean, it's not like Bon Air Shopping Center or other places where it's very agreeable to meet. There's practically no place to meet. And Starbucks and Pete's, as they stand right now, are way too small. So the new town square should offer a very attractive cafe with ample meeting space in and outside dining areas. And we should also have some very attractive other restaurants, a bakery, and please, no chain stores. Drive-through restaurants or drive-ins are the antithesis of community building.
Thank you very much.
Okay, drive-ins should not be supported in any way.
Thank you.
They just bring
Your time
transient
is
people.
over.
Thank you.
Very much. Next, please. Your name?
Hi, my name is Vicki Johnson, and I'm a resident of San Rafael for many years and a retail development specialist. But my question is more not the details of the design. I think there's been a lot of attention on a lot of smaller details, whether it's bollards or picnic tables or whatever. My concern is the design overall of the project. And I think what we failed to allow people to experience is what this project is going to look like and feel like from a pedestrian level. So in attending many meetings and the community meetings with Merlin Geyer over at Northgate and so forth, and speaking to them directly, and in the last meeting, it was requested that we do one of the things that are very readily available nowadays is the, I guess you call it virtual reality or wherever, where you are able to experience it at a pedestrian level. So the animation was very nice. It was certainly an improvement, but that's a flyover. And that does not give you the feeling. I don't even know if there has been a shadow study, but I would hope that there would be somewhere along the line. We still haven't done an EIR. And my other question to Merlin Geyer is, you seem to only focus on Macy's when they go out of business as to replacing it with residential. It's 300,000 square feet. Why would you not replace it with retail? Retail will be in demand, and if it's done right, it can be greatly successful, but this isn't going to work.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Sophie Shihai. I live in Quail Hill up above the mall, and I'll be looking directly down on 7 stories. We do actually have housing to the west of the mall, as he said that we don't, but I live there. So I am going to be affected. The other thing I want to say is there's so much for bicycles, and I love bicycles. I ride bicycles, but the aging community of Marin, they're getting older. They're not going to be riding bicycles to the mall. The kids will be riding bicycles to the mall and terrorizing the people that are trying to walk around. Sorry. That's sort of their thing. And the last meeting that I was at here, I said, okay, they've got a really nice pedestrian walkway on the east side and pedestrian and bicycle. And it goes around so far and then it stops on the complete west side. And you have a very narrow sidewalk. They're not doing anything about except for narrowing the road so they can put more bicycle lanes in. I'm not happy about this. The aesthetics of it are horrible. I mean, if they think that they can make this mall successful in 2025, why can't they make it successful now? It's a business. They are running it to the ground so that we are thrilled to and will be happy to accept a 7-story tower. Okay. I'm not gonna accept a 7-story tower, no matter what. And the animation that they did, it was great. You fly by in your drone and they did buildings 4, 5, and 6. They did not show the buildings that are going to be built first. And that's the ones that affect all of us here where we live. We are a suburban ranch area, 1 stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Your name, please?
My name is Julie Case. I live in Nova Albion Way. I've been here before. I'd like to say hello. I invited some of you the last time I was at one of these meetings to come to my house. It may have been some of you, I don't remember. I live 5 houses up from Nova Albion, right behind the Northgate Mall. I'm a 60+ year resident of Terra Linda, so I feel competent to my comments. Your comments were really about the design review and the traffic and the e-bikes and how you are going to address that. I want to let you know that I have direct experiences of the traffic and the impact, not only just with Los Ranchitos, Northgate Drive, but coming from Terra Linda High School and the hospital and all of that. I'm not sure if everything has been considered in regards to all the designs and all the entrances and all the uplifting the sidewalks or whatever. I tried to stay on top of this. I'm watching the time, and I do want you to all know that I'd like to be able to do the homework for the next meeting that's in September, which is going to be dealing with the housing and the height and all that stuff. I heard you guys loud and clear about that, but I really do want you to consider e-bikes. Going to tell you a lot about that without helmets, without that's a whole subject in and of itself, but it's going to have an impact if you're inviting bicyclists through that, the mall and the town center. Big impact, I can tell you. We'll talk later. If you want to talk to me, I'm available. I'm concerned about emergency sheltering and whatever, if something happens. I'm going to tell you about the impact of what happens when 101 gets blocked up and they're going to come behind us there. And I will say that it's important to consider about those parking spaces that, yeah, the retail has changed. I walk around that mall almost on a daily basis with a pet. And I do know the area very, very well. And I think there's got to be some more review, and the city has to pay attention to law enforcement and how that's going to be structured. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Cambia Moisey, and I was born here. I started working at the Emporium when I was 17, right over there in that mall. I think the part of the design is the density that's there. I think that's a real problem, the density compared to the neighborhood. I think the open space requirements aren't being met. I think that's a very small town square for the amount of people that are going to live there. What, like 3,000 people are going to be there? Then you're going to expect more people to come from the outside. I don't see how that's going to work with the space that's there. I think not talking to Macy's and Kohl's about the lease so you can utilize the whole space as far as design is probably short-sighted, because I don't think those retailers are enjoying it. You said it's not a perfect world. It's certainly not a perfect world for those type of retailers. I think I think shared paths between bikes and people are dangerous, which we've already said. I think saying that's so great, that is not. I love cyclists and I love walkers, and they don't work on the same path. Okay. And where do you see this kind of thing in Marin for the people that want to live here? I just wonder, who is the person that's going to live here? How much is the income that they're going to be? What are the demographics? So you have to think about the design. Are they really who's going to want to live here? And how much are you charging them to live here? Because that's part of the design. they're gonna leave their dog at home in their apartment for all day and then come use the dog park. Like some of this stuff doesn't make sense to me on who these people are. And I think 6 and 7 stories, where is that in Marin? The Marin Hospital is like 5 stories. So where do we feel this in here, you know, by this houses? And I think referencing Arkansas just shows to me how divorced this is from the people and the aesthetics of here. Saying Arkansas, it's like, you know, no slight to Arkansas, but it's not here. So anyhow, and then the painting a mountain instead of a real one, that's again a slap in the face. We come here for our mountains. We come here for our nature. And that is such the antithesis, that development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Dieter Meyerhoff. I'm a new resident here, but still interested in the development, and partly one reason we moved into the area was the development around the new Northgate Mall. So I'm interested in it becoming a successful project. Minor comments about designs, discussing the large walls of the cinema. There is this mountain scene proposed. Next to it is a large wall. And coming from Europe, we've seen a lot of green walls being constructed, which you know, do require water, but probably can be done in a way that it's done water-wise and might fit in the area, in the surrounding areas as well. I was shocked to hear that the lawn space is artificial turf. It's really harmful materials that are being used. That's proven so, and certainly also unpleasant to the touch. And I hope there are other turf alternatives that are considered that may be viable there. With regard to the rocks that I've seen strewn around the lawn area, are those artificial as well, or are they natural? And I hope they are natural. And the same with regard to the logs in the toddler area. Hopefully they are not artificial. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Pam Reeves, and I'm a longtime resident of Terra Linda, not far from the area that we're talking about. And I want to thank you for your time and your dedication. I'm a vice president of Marine Conservation League, and I would like to talk a bit about landscaping. I want to check, did you receive the letter? Were you able to read the letter from Nancy Hughes? Okay, so I don't need to repeat that because it has some really important information about landscaping. She has helped cities across the state. She's the ED of California Urban Forest Council. And I want to underscore, you could just go around the city, the Terra Linda area, and see dead redwoods because they're planted inappropriately. They require a lot of water, and I would have you greatly consider that, to reconsider that. And something I want to say from the Conservation League as well is that greenhouse gas emissions are something we need to stop now, not creating drive-throughs when we don't all have EVs, besides all the other reasons that people mentioned it. But it's seriously misconceived to have anything drive-through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Layla Hill. I live in Los Ranchitos, which is just 1 mile down the road. We will be the recipient of lots of traffic going back and forth to the mall for another day. I'd like to thank Merlone Geyer, though. I mean, although there's been a lot of changes since the initial project, and there's more to come, but thank you very much for going through this process and working with us on this. I do think I echo a lot of the comments from others. Residential buildings at 6 and 7 stories are just too high. The artificial turf hurts the soul of Marin County and my dogs. The dog park will not be very happily used. And most of all, what I've learned tonight, the two things are the shared use of pedestrian bicycles and e-bikes and electric scooters. I hope you have very good liability insurance, because that's a conscious decision that you all are making to do that. And it will be liberally used, I'm sure. That's a really dangerous situation. The drive-throughs are also not really what we need in that area. We need smaller restaurants, places to sit down, relax, and enjoy a meal with neighbors and create the kind of community fusion that we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, my name is Ray Lorber. I'm live in the community. And I could say a lot of things about the design, but I think the best way to sum it up and let us all go home is the community doesn't want to hear. Get rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more comments in the auditorium? If not, we'll go to the Zoom for questions.
Okay. All right. A little tricky sharing the timer while getting Zoom, but here we go. So first up on Zoom, we have Keith and Connie Granger. You are now able to unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. My wife and I live about 5 minutes walk from Northgate Mall. We've been going there for 30 some years. We enjoy shopping, eating, having everything there. Our main concern on design, like many others, of course, is this very small public garden space. It's just simply inadequate. The mall is still designed around a parking lot, and that's been the thing since day one. I'd like to know if the applicant has seriously considered or priced out the possibility of putting the parking underground. And before he complains about how much it costs, please keep in mind that 1.5 miles from Northgate, there is a retirement community that put almost 1, maybe 2 acres of underground parking first before they built their facility on top. If they can afford to do that, I assure you the owners of Northgate Mall can do that. Even if only for bypass, put it underground. There's also one, in what very few people realize is there's one entire footprint of the Sears shopping building that is underground, a lower level that already has access to the street. That should be utilized as potential parking for either the residents or someone else. And so I think we should be asking them to fill in that space. The raised parking walks, if that's beneficial, I think we should explore that. I mean, if you look at where the fire people are going to be coming from, which end, they're not going to have to cross through this area in the center. So I do appreciate the changes that have been made, the effort that's been made, and I hope we can see more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Carol, rhymes with Carol. Carol, you are now able to unmute yourself.
Hi, I am Terrell Calloway, the Executive Director for Marin County Bicycle Coalition, and then also Town Council member for San Anselmo, but I'm calling in my role as Executive Director for MCBC. MCBC was honored to be brought in to give feedback on this project, and though we are often pushing for better bike ped improvements, projects that increase housing really get to the root of how we can create in our communities lively, walkable, and sustainable communities. Because you can't bike to where you need to go if you live 30 miles from work. Let me just back up here. Let's see, this project brings housing closer to commerce, and it will showcase an array of bike ped amenities, safe for your 8-year-old granddaughter or your 90-year-old father to ride. a Main Street experience that has the potential to become one of the most desirable communities in Marin. We appreciate the developer's willingness to take feedback and create a more bike-friendly project. We like that the peripheral pathway has been extended to cover all of the residential buildings. We like the bike parking and other bike amenities, but I do remain concerned, as many of you have spoken, about the amount of parking. I'd ask if the studies that the developer mentions show all the parking, studies that show all parking is needed, take into account the advent of the e-bike, the travel patterns of families post-COVID, which is increasingly less car-centric, and patterns. I'm wondering if these studies that he also talks about were specific to Marin County, because Marin County is really a special place, and a lot of people like to get around by car and by bike. Not everybody can, but those who can like to. Marin is a worldly county, and I believe there's a demand for European-style squares with minimal car noise and quiet, mellow, pleasant places to breathe fresh air and commune with neighbors. I love the public
very
square,
much.
and I agree it should
2
be
minutes
bigger.
are up.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Matthew Hartzell. Matthew, you're now able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Hartzell. I'm the Director of Planning at WTB TAM. We're an organization that's focused on advocating for sustainable transportation infrastructure and land use policy for the last 30 years here in Marin County. And we're one of the groups that was on a slide that David shared earlier of the many community groups that they have engaged with over the course of this design and planning process. And so we want to thank Merlin Geyer and David's for having that engagement. And we had several conversations. We're primarily, our group is focused on bicycle and pedestrian safety and connectivity. And we are very pleased with the improvements and changes that were included in, sorry, I'm at 2 Zoom meetings at the same time. The other one just tried to call me, but this one is more important. Okay. The site plan is really a good design, and we're really pleased with the additional bicycle safety, shared use paths, extension of the bike path around the perimeter, bike hubs, secure bike parking and e-bike charging in the ground level of the residential buildings, and connectivity around the site to surrounding schools, amenities, transportation, the smart station. This really is a transit-oriented development and a bicycle and pedestrian-oriented development that's going to do more than really any other development in Marin recent history to improve Marin's sustainability and make a high quality, high attractive designed community center of people who to live, work, and play. And I just want to say specifically that the mural with the image of Mount Tam on the side of the cinema looks really nice. And as does the entire design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Skylar Collins. Skylar, you are now able to unmute yourself.
Thank you and good evening. I want to express my support for this project as a whole and also commend the design. I think it just looks really nice to me as someone who hasn't, I haven't delved into it too deeply, but it looks great. Definitely support the solar panels and the Mount Tam design on the side of the building. Those looked great as well. And I'll just be very quick. I realized that this is the wrong meeting for this, but the income threshold for qualifying for low income housing is to be making $38 an hour for to not be rent burdened. And I just wanted to flag that. I'll bring that up at a future meeting. But thanks for all the hard work, and I'm looking forward to seeing this come to life. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Next up, we have Anne Gray. Anne, you are now able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. This is Anne Gray. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Vivalon, formerly Whistle Stop. And Vivalon's the largest nonprofit serving older adults in Marin through transportation, Meals on Wheels, and programs addressing food insecurity, social isolation, and healthy aging. And we are the leading advocate for Marin's 75,000 older adults. And I urge you to consider their unique needs in the design of this project. This project has the potential to address numerous needs of our community's aging population. So please ensure easy access to bus transportation for people with mobility issues and residents of the affordable housing sites. And also please require an age-in-place universal design for the residential units and the outdoor spaces with limited stairs and having lots of abilities for rolling wheelchairs and walkers and people with mobility issues to move around comfortably, and ample elevator access in the developments. Older adults are a key stakeholder when it comes to new projects in Marin, and at Vivalon, we see firsthand many challenges for older adults if their needs are not considered in new developments. Thank you so much for keeping them in mind as part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Next up, we have Kathy Manavi. Kathy, you are now able to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of the input that's being received by the planners from the community. I've been involved as a member of the community advisory group working with the city to plan the Marydale Promenade. And I'm really happy to hear that Merlongear is willing to make some adjustments to help us connect the promenade with the planned and improved bicycle and pedestrian paths that will be encircling the site. I would like to add my voice to the chorus of people who are concerned about mixing bicyclists with pedestrians. I think that as long as you're doing a good job on being realistic about some separation of really high-end bicyclists and spandex versus the wobbly kid on his scooter, and maybe people who are just walking and need to not be mixing with people that, you know, to your left, behind you, that's not going to work. Going through the site, that's another thing, but I'm more concerned about what's more likely to happen. High-speed bicyclists going around, they're already on the roadway going the same speed as cars. There needs to be some kind of an adjustment visually or whatever it is design wise to help them understand you're coming into a shared space, then you need to slow down. When you're talking also about drive-throughs, I'm a lot concerned about the possibility of those drive-throughs crossing that path that encircles, you know, goes mixes into the regular roadways. I would hope that we don't have drive-throughs for lots of reasons, including just, you know, the nature of the site. I would hope, I'm going to echo a lot of the other comments and saying that we really want a more community-oriented type of amenities there. Lastly, I do want to add my voice to saying that the square should be bigger. It should have natural pervious grass that helps us with water sinking into this into the ground and not becoming more of a flash flood runoff problem for the city to absorb in its infrastructure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Bob Pendley. Bob, you are now able to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Pendoli. I'm speaking for the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative. We're a consortium of advocates generating support for projects and policies that advance in affordable housing and environmental sustainability. That said, we strongly support this project. Mixed-use development at appropriate heights and densities, as are proposed in this project, are essential for meeting our housing needs, fostering social and economic equity, and promoting environmental sustainability. We are really glad to see we're really pleased with the improvements that have been made to the internal pedestrian, bicycle, and motor vehicle circulation. And we support these changes. And we're particularly glad that you're taking up the suggestion to raise crosswalks and provide pedestrian tables, particularly around Town Square. We think that this adds to the walkability and safety of the project. However, we think the project is overparked. We suggest that areas of the site could be put into a landscape reserve that could be converted to parking if subsequent conditions warrant. We strongly suggest that the Design Review Board discuss this concept and develop some suggestions for areas that could be put into such a reserve. We're looking forward to delving deeper into the residential architecture, and we're strongly support this project, and we're looking forward to the next phase. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Cody Estes. Cody, you're now able to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Cody Estes. I've been in Marin County for the past 17 years, going to various elementary school, middle school, and high school here, as well as staying close, going to SF State and working at UCSF Health in the city. Looking at Northgate, I do remember as a kid the livelihood of it, and it is sad to see the state that it's in right now. I am really looking forward to this design and everything that's going on. A couple of things that I see was possibly exploring the LED lights around the vicinity, as they have around, I think, the smart train near the Best Buy. It's like kind of purple. It's kind of stop people from loitering at night around the area just for security reasons. It would be nice to see the park bigger, but I think the design as is great. I am just 29 years old, looking forward to, start a family and stuff. I do see a lack of my demographic attending this meeting. So I do have some friends, in the early 30s, looking forward to children on the horizon. And this design kind of as is, and seeing the improvements that the rest of the community is making, put some optimism and enjoyment into the future with our future generations to come here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Carmela Davis. Carmela, you're now able to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Carmela Davis. I am a Marin born and raised resident, and I recently went to college and graduated. And as of right now, there's not an abundance of any sort of affordable housing for someone in my similar position or age range. And I think, like Cody just said before me, even in the decade above me, as I'm 22, I think that the same goes for teachers and public servants who work in Marin. I think that there definitely is a demand and need for density housing as it's more environmentally sustainable for the area. And I think that this is appropriate and it's essential for meeting our housing needs in Marin County. We have a very high requirement to be meeting in the housing element. And I think that this project is very much needed and I'm in support of it. And I had a question about when the connection to the smart station would be developed and what the project would be contributing to that connection. And I am echoing everyone else's comments about it being overparked. I think that there is never been a time I've ever been past Northgate Mall where there isn't an abundance of empty parking spaces. I think that that could be reduced significantly so that the community green space area can be bigger and better. I think we want this to be lively and fun and environmentally sustainable. And the way to do that is to remove parking and emphasizing public transit and bicycles. And yeah, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Victoria Holdridge. Victoria, you're now able to unmute yourself.
Hi there. Oh, I don't know why my picture isn't showing. It's Victoria Holdridge. I'm a member of the Marin Organizing Committee and have been working on the Affordable Housing Subcommittee for several years. And I am thrilled about the project. My family moved here back in 1966 when the mall was brand new, bustling with energy and everything else. And malls are not like that anymore. It's a dying mall, and I'm thrilled that we're going to add much needed housing to the mall and bring in more appropriate stores. My two concerns about the project, and I've been following it for a couple years, my two concerns at this point are the AstroTurf. No, that doesn't really work. It's not environmentally sound, and so natural grass would be better. And the drive-throughs, no, that's new, and I don't like that. That's greenhouse gases. No, we're better off with community kinds of gathering places. And I liked somebody else's idea about community gathering, buildings where we can have meetings and stuff would be awesome as well. Anyway, keep going with the housing. I really look forward to all that you're doing, and thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Cecil. Cecil, you're now able to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Cecile Nielsen, and I was a member of the North San Rafael Vision and Action Committee for numerous years. And I don't like the idea of drive-throughs, but if you put a drive-through donut shop, that probably would be nice. Just kidding. No, we don't want that. Wouldn't be good for my diet. Number one, we need to finish the promenade phase 1. Thank you. Number 2, we need a path to the SMART train. The SMART train is hurting. Please consider that. Put that on the top of your list. I read your proposal, and you mentioned fern trees and pin oaks. Fern oaks and pin oaks. No. We don't want that. You need to consult with the Marin master gardeners. I didn't see you guys list them as part of your info. The town center is very small. It's very weak. That needs to be redone. And the board, thank you for sitting there and listening to all of us. I think we all agree that we need to go back to the table and be more green, be more sustainable, support local farmers, local businesses. We need a grocery store. We don't need bikes going through there, especially e-bikes. We need a park for kids, teens, and adults. We need to think about something healthy, a gym, more trees. And besides, we're going to have so many people there. Where are they going to swim? Where are they going to play? Where are they going to play pickleball? Where are they going to walk? So thank you, and hope we'll finish this meeting soon. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Tyler Nielsen. Tyler, you're now able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Tyler Nielsen. I'm 18 years old, and I've been born and raised here in Terra Linda. So to start, climate change is getting worse. We have crazier winters and hotter summers. We need indoor parts of the mall. When it is raining, nobody will go there, or if there's no protection from the rain. I like the progress we've made with incorporating bike lanes, art walls, transit, and more, so I will double my backing on those. But I still think we are missing some of the things that will really bring people to our city. We need a music venue. When I or others go to music venues anywhere, 9 times out of 10, the businesses around the venue profit from spending of concert goers. We also, I believe, should add a roller rink as a year-round entertainment draw as opposed to a seasonal ice rink. It would be easier to maintain as well. An arcade would be great and draw in people from all around Marin too. I want to emphasize, do not hire artists to let the public paint. That is what the public art is, by the public. I like the expansion of the parks, but we really need to think about the public space to resident ratio. I propose a solution to the parking to green space argument. We dig. Directly under the town square, we put a huge parking garage directly under it that's used for everything around and maximize the size of our town square to be as big as possible. Elevators and stairs leading to different locations, and businesses can bid for those letouts. Something we all seem to agree we want to have it bigger is a green space / town square, but not turf. I will mention we must mandate expansions to public restrooms and to be done with this project to support the growing population and safety factors. More classrooms, childcare, ER rooms, and most importantly, I think we need to add another fire station on the edge of Northgate Station with a one Type 1 engine, a medic unit would help with ambulance wall times, and perhaps even a ladder truck for the increased height of buildings you plan on adding. Which I would like to point out that most people seem to agree 7-story, as discussed, is rather tall. I think it would be much better if you had shorter buildings and and more low-income housing.
Thank you very much. It's your 2 minutes.
Okay. Let's see. I think that is now everybody. Maybe just give everyone a second. Anyone in the public in the chambers or on Zoom who wish to speak, please.
Okay. Please come up.
There's been so much discussion about the bike paths, mixed use with pedestrians.
Your name again, sorry.
I'm Mary Ellen Himmelavadia. We live in the Los Ranchitos area. I had a very long career on the UC Berkeley campus as a senior administrator at Berkeley. And that is certainly a location where there is a confluence of a lot of bikes and a lot of people. And I will point out that the university strictly prohibits bikes going through the campus, being ridden. Bikes must be walked. And if there are bike paths as such a prominent part of this development, being ridden through that area, intermingling with people emerging from their cars, people who've been passengers in cars and then walking to the various places, or people just strolling. It is an accident waiting to be happen, or maybe a few, or maybe more than a few. So think about the UC Berkeley approach, the campus approach. All bikes must be walked.
Thank you. If there are no other public comments and no more online.
Hold up, we do have two more hands. All right, so for phone number starting with 415-472, you can now press *6 to unmute yourself, and you can now speak.
Hi, this is Shirley Fisher. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm a long-term resident of Terralinda. I sent a letter that has quotes of the review criteria for environmental and design review permits and the municipal code that specifies that a planning commission can approve, conditionally approve, or deny EDR permits, which is what you're considering tonight. Your role in advising the planning commission, I urge you to advise the planning commission to conditionally approve this project with the following conditions, among others. First of all, site plan. The green space, the 0.6 acre green space in phase 2 needs to be retained. If it can't be next to Kohl's, it should be relocated. Parking solution with podium parking or whatever else is needed, but to lose the existing undersized green space is really unacceptable. Number 2, a condition regarding the bicycle and pedestrian connections. There should be a condition assuring that the applicant is committed to construction of the Marydale Promenade in phase 1 that will, through an enabling contribution that would be included in the development agreement. This is part of the mandate that the City Council will address, but the Planning Commission can make a recommendation on it, and you can recommend to the Planning Commission. Number 3, condition regarding the attractiveness and relation to the surrounding neighborhoods, which is one of the review criteria and purposes for an EDR permit. Conversion, this has been mentioned a dozen times, conversion of those drive-in through restaurants should be made to be sit-down restaurants or some other type of retail that better fits into the community and also does not cause traffic and problems and increases in greenhouse gases. Number 4, a conditional also for the attractiveness in relation to the surrounding neighborhood, assurance that the project will include amenities such as substantial size cafes, which we no longer have in Terra Linda, and grocery store to handle the new residents. Those are my main concerns that I addressed in the letter. I would just make one other comment, that dealing with the 90 to 100 degree heat, something that's used very frequently in locations, particularly in Europe, are installing misters. You can install them in the town center and dining areas and other places. And I totally agree that the choice of AstroTurf for a town center is inappropriate. There are other ways that they can deal with the green space that would be low water usage, but also not be toxic to the environment. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I think we have one more. I'm just gonna go back here. Oops. Oh, we're getting a few more. Okay. Johnson Reynolds, you are now able to unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you. This is.
Oh, wait, sorry, Johnson, just a second. Okay, Johnson, sorry, try that again.
Yeah, this is a long-term project, 2040 for the second phase, 2025 for the first phase. Of course, we need to provide more housing, affordable housing for low-income people, for people that do service work. Many of the people who in these housings around Northgate Mall will work in the retail stores and be caretakers and other workers that we need, workforce workers as well as others. We need to have the amenities. We do need to have natural grass. We need to have local stores that are not chain stores. I appreciate that. We need to have grocery stores for people that are going to live in the area. Those kind of things, and music and community space where people come together and have community. The diversity of people that will live there and come from the outside should be able to share community where there's a space where they can eat together and have community with one another. That's really building community. It's important that mixed income people, different people of different races and cultures meeting together. And this is the opportunity for that to happen, as well as being sensitive to the environment and electricity and solar panels and natural grass that would serve everybody well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Mackenzie C.
Good evening. My name is Mackenzie. I have been a Marin resident for about 6 or 7 years now, and I have a young family. And I just wanted to mirror a sentiment that was mentioned a little bit earlier about providing activities for children when it's really hot or raining outside. We are pretty limited in Marin. I remember recently someone was trying to plan a bowling outing and they were forced to go to Santa Rosa or the Presidio. And I think that's kind of a shame that something as simple as bowling requires a 30-minute commute. So I would consider that as one of your commercial attractions. So things like that, like a Dave & Buster's, something like that would be really great for an indoor activity on those days where it's just unbearable to be outside in the sun. We do have a lot of parks in Marin, so I'm not expecting a full park or anything like that, but I do commend Merlone Geyer on hearing everybody's input. I know they're not necessarily required to take all of these comments into consideration, but it sounds like they've been really considerate and flexible, and I think that shows a lot about them as a developer. Overall, I think the size and the scale of the project is fitting for the lot size. I hear a lot of disagreement on that, but I think a lot of people misunderstand how tall a 5 to 7 story building actually is. They're not that much taller than what's there right now. So I'm not too concerned about that, especially if you build in the architecture, sloped roofs instead of flat roofs, stuff like that. I think it'll be really nice. And I appreciate all the landscaping to soften a lot of the hard edges and keeping the tall buildings kind of set back from the road. I think the renderings look really nice, and I just want to offer my support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Doug Sides.
All right, good evening. Can you guys hear me all right?
We can.
Wonderful. Yeah, so my name is Doug Sides. I've been living in Marin for about 7 years now. Yeah, I just want to say, overall, I like the overall design, layout, and aesthetic for the Northgate redevelopment. We absolutely need the additional housing, and I like seeing the mixed use of commercial and residential. Quick comment on the ideas of putting the parking underground. I believe one previous speaker, resident talked about a assisted living facility nearby that put their parking underground. I can't help but wonder, just how big is that alleged underground parking? I can't imagine it's as big as it would have to be for Northgate. And I work for PG&E, and it costs a lot of money just to put just electrical utilities underground. So doing a whole parking structure would be quite something else. I think my main concern, and this will be brought up in a future meeting, is just the affordability of the low income or affordable residential units. Ideally, we would like to have those units, support, the kinds of people who work at Northgate, the restaurant workers, janitors, and other kinds of staff. But no, otherwise, no, I feel like we're moving overall in the right direction. It looks great, and yeah, we have 4 to 5 story buildings in near downtown San Rafael, and you don't really notice it that much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, I am now seeing no more hands.
Okay, if there are no more comments, I'm going to close public comment. Normally, I would ask if someone is prepared to make a motion, but I would like to make a motion that,
Well, we have to discuss.
oh, sorry,
We haven't had discussion yet.
sorry.
We need a motion. I don't think.
Is there discussion on the board?
Oh, I'm sure.
Member Blaney?
All right. From where I left off, I think the town center should be, or the town square should be double the size that it is. You've got a heck of a job here. You got a client with a program, I'm sure. You have us, you have all these gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen behind you. You have these mystery commercial entities that you don't know what you're going to get and how much parking they're going to need, and you're trying to figure this all out and put it in one big old package here. And you got a tough job. I'd like to be on that team. It'd be a fun job to do, but I can recognize how tough your job is. Personally, I think that the housing element, which everyone is pushing for, especially Marin County, has really pushed this project over the edge. You have your commercial components. They all have their own requirements for parking and how much they're going to require. And I know you're kind of guessing what you might get here or there, not knowing. But then all the spaces left over just got crammed with housing, more parking, less open space. It's unfortunate there's not more open space in this project. You have the one clustered town center. It would be nice to have little satellite areas of open space also, so smaller groups could get together and meet. There may be a building dedicated to the community. I don't know if your client's willing to do something like that, that they could rent for a homeowner association meeting or just a committee meeting or something. I mean, that'd be nice to have out there. The problem is you don't have the space for it. And the way I look at the plan, it looks like the housing is just kind of taken over. And again, there's pressure from a lot of people to do that. So I guess those are my thoughts. I think the project is just overdeveloped.
Thank you. Member Summers.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna hit it with that broad of a brushstroke. But I think some themes have been common from our questions to the public. You know, we can all start with the public square. We all think it needs to somehow get bigger. And I'm gonna task you guys to go figure out how that might be. I'm not sure we need the dog park, honestly, frankly, you know, just lose the dog park. There's some more space for people. People can go find, there's a lot of dog parks around here. I have a dog. Believe me, I have a dog that I need to get out. But I think that could help some to task it more for people. I don't think the dog park was a requirement. So I think that it's something that, you know, mixing dogs and people sometimes sounds wonderful. A lot of times it's a nightmare. And we're training a new puppy right now, and the dog trainer's telling us, don't go to dog parks. Most owners don't watch their dogs. It becomes social hour and problems happen. So that's just a comment. I don't think we need it. I would love to see that parking lot that's half of that adjacent to that public square be the whole public core. I think that would activate the area dramatically. So again, where does the parking go? How does that metric work? If we were underparked from the city standard, I would even support a parking variance. Like, you know what? They need to underpark it to get our park bigger, far out. Let's do it. Do we need to look at car lifts somewhere? Let's look at lifts. I know some other local housing projects have proposed them. And, you know, when I've talked to them, they said they weren't exactly as cost prohibitive as you might think. So something to look at. Obviously they don't cost nothing. So, first of all, then to echo, I should have started with this. This is incredible. Your efforts, your 40 meetings with the public, you're bringing this kind of document to us. It's amazing. And I want to commend every single one of you. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around this and I've been a professional for 35 years. It's like, oh my God. So you guys really have done an amazing job bringing this to us. So I want all of you to know that. Residential meetings, that's the next meeting. Drive-throughs, I'm not in support of the drive-throughs. And I think we've seen some, you know, even if a national chain does come in there, I don't think that's something we're going to restrict like Fairfax. I don't think that's honestly fair to the owners. But, you know, In-N-Out Burgers down here with no drive-through. It's probably the only non-drive-through one they have in California, and they're very successful. So I think I'm not in support of the drive-throughs. It's just going to create accidents, a traffic problem, the car queuing, which is going to screw up your parking. So it's going to solve part of your problem with that. The cinema, I know, I can't wrap my head around that mural. It might look good and some people might like it, then it's going to get dated and then it's there forever, however it's made. So the green wall idea from the European gentleman, I think can be successful. Hearing the young kids say, hey, public art should be public art, and let the public come and have some sort of rotating art. I think that's a pretty neat idea too, to activate the community. Colors, I think, someone was saying that there were too many whites, but as I dig through your color board, I think they've done a pretty good job at going to the earth tones. So I think the color palette's fine. I do like the idea someone suggested on the next animation. Let's get it down at the pedestrian level, something we're really going to see when we drive by or walk by, because that's a whole different experience. And we have had a theme in this town with some of the other developments, that what is the pedestrian experience? And that might, on that elevation of the cinema, instead of it just being a big flat wall with artwork, we could have some awnings or things that protect the sidewalk or whatever that are up higher, and somehow in combination with your landscape, bring some interest to the building, some landscaping. So I think that elevation, I think all of us have commented on it in one way or another, could use some some kind of more articulation, not just painting a mountain on it. The bike split path idea, I'm back and forth on it. This e-bike problem is a problem, but it's more of a societal problem, and they don't know how to regulate these things and teach people. And you know, people got to start being parents, I think, and not buying those things for their kids. It's a whole nother diatribe, but they are a problem. But you know, basically, I think they're a little motorcycle. They shouldn't even been allowed on bike paths. That should really be it. They should be street legal. They should get a license and go on the street. But I think that's it. I was taking notes from the public. I think you've heard real loud and clear about the town center park. If that means some of the retail around it needs to shift somehow, because you know, you need some cars to service the retail, and maybe just some wholesale thoughts on how to move some of those functions around. I think if it was bigger, I think it would really activate the space like you're hoping it would, which I'm not sure this is going to do. Music venue, great idea. That's more about your tenant. I mean, we see it up at Hop Monk in Novato in a shopping mall, and they've got a nice lively restaurant with a music room, and they bring a lot of quality acts in there. So, and I don't know if that's in the cards. I thought that was a neat comment. And that's it for comments. Again, the effort's commendable, and you're at your public outreach. I mean, some people might not like the project, but I think they like that you've tried to work with them. So thank you.
Thank you. Member Alexin.
Well, to save time, I won't echo a lot of what's been said. I agree with much of it. A few other thoughts to add. I just feel the whole thing is sort of artificial and hot for outdoor space. I think with climate change and looking at the city, the only thing that saves us in San Rafael are our trees and, you know, and the planting. So can you add flowers? You know, landscape elements, I believe, should be natural. Somebody mentioned about the rocks, you know, being real rocks, not fake rocks, you know, lose the astroturf. I really agree with that. I think what I'm afraid we're going to create is an oven. And I think that needs to be looked at in all the ways that you've got a lot of great comments. You know, and even in the, you know, the design, whether it's awnings or covered walkways or some way to bring shade, because if it's not super hot, it's usually, you know, raining. So there's not a lot of in between in that part of San Rafael. So, you know, I also commend you. It's a really tough design. I actually like the mix of you know, colors and the way buildings are articulated. I know we'll get into that more later, liking the mix of material. And I think using natural elements is really important. You have some wood. I'd actually like to see more of it to go with the different, you know, colors of stucco that you're proposing. I have an e-bike. I'm really concerned about the mixture of bikes and pedestrians. That's got to be solved. It's just I have a dog that's almost killed by an e-biker on a pedestrian pathway. So I don't know how you do that, but it's really scares me. And maybe it is something to think about. This is beyond design, but you know, how do we just make it pedestrian friendly? And you know, the gentleman from Europe brought up like the European city. Another, you know, thought that keeps coming to mind is like, if you've been in, you know, the plaza in Sonoma, it's, you know, I think one of the things you're trying to do, and I commend your effort, is to serve many, many masters and make as many people happy as you can. But when you stand back and look, you know, can we fit all of these uses, you know, from soccer to, you know, to dog parks, to everything? And it's like people need a place to gather and need great places to do that. And so, you know, for that, you know, the design of those public areas, it needs to be comfortable, it needs to be natural, it needs to be attractive. And I feel like open expanses, you know, of AstroTurf are just wrong for the development. So I think not being redundant on some of the others, things that were said, I think I'll stop right there.
All right, I have a few comments. I'm not going to repeat. I pretty much agree with my fellow board members. My biggest issues are the 40-foot sheer walls that face townhouses and people walk next to. I think you have an opportunity to do some really nice design that needs to happen. We can't have a community like that. It's not going to foster community. It's going to make scary spaces for people to have to walk near, and it's going to be a crime problem. So that, and also the dog park, I also don't think really is a great place for it. But I will go down to the East Bay, or where is it? South Bay. I'll ask Jeff where you have a South Bay dog park mixed with, I can't really picture it. I would like to say that the Design Review Board is not prepared to make a decision or answer specific questions tonight. This is an informational meeting, and we are going to take this under advisement. We have a little bit of reading to do, and we're going to take all the public comment, but we are not going to be making a judgment tonight.
Chair Kowalski, so the decision would have to be a motion that would be made by one of the Design Review Board members.
Okay.
Whether to continue or whether to deliberate and provide recommendations at this time. So it would be.
I make a motion.
To the chair, and can I ask staff a question? Was the expectation, I know it's so massive, we're trying to bust it up. Was the expectation was that in one or two meetings, we were going to get through the commercial portion and then attempt to bifurcate it and have the residential be a whole nother component? Or are we trying to have several meetings so we take one decisive action at the end with some sort of recommendation to the commission after we've looked at it holistically? I kind of heard mixed messages there, so I'm wondering what is the expectation of staff?
So our recommendation to you was to provide, if the Design Review Board was prepared to make a recommendation on those 4 components, that could be done tonight. However, if the Design Review Board felt that it was necessary to continue to be able to kind of absorb the information that was provided tonight, that the board could do that. And at the next meeting, after receiving additional public comment, you would then deliberate and provide the recommendation on these items that we presented tonight.
So for instance, what if we continue the applicant on the items we've talked about tonight with some consensus? They go and get busy trying to respond to what we've talked about. However, if we've bifurcated it and some of our other comments may in fact affect the residential component, I'm actually kind of feeling bad for our applicant to kind of stretch their whole effort out, because this really is a holistic thing. It's to cut it in half is difficult. So
yeah,
I would think that they would want, if I was the applicant, I'd want to get all the comments, commercial and residential, go back, come up with some cohesive response, hopefully that they've pulled it off and we're recommending them to the commission.
So the expectation would not be that the comments that are provided tonight would be directed to the applicant to come back at the next meeting with a solution. The expectation would be that either you deliberate tonight and provide the planning commission with a recommendation, or you deliberate at the future meeting and provide the planning commission with a recommendation at that point. And then, so you're basically breaking up this, typically what would be in one meeting, you would be breaking them up into 2 meetings. So you're commenting, providing feedback on those 4 components that we talked about tonight. And then at a future date, you would be receiving a presentation on the residential component in the same way.
I guess I'm confused. Could we not, in fact, then they've got all these great comments and we're going to get some consensus on our comments. Could we not then just go ahead and have the next meeting be about the residential components? And then we could then hear all of that, make some consensus items on that, and then come back to a meeting where we just wrap it up?
If the Design Review Board's prepared to do that, that could.
It just seems more logical to me. I'm like I said, I think, what if we make some changes? And I'm sorry, I'm pontificating here, but what if we ask for a bunch of changes on the residential because we haven't really drilled down on it yet, that then start to bleed over and affect everything we talked about the commercial, and, you know, we're gonna drive the public and the applicant crazy. You know, that's in my opinion. I don't know if you folks have any.
I'd like to ask the applicant, what can we do to better serve you?
Approve it. Yeah, bring cookies next time.
I think staff is looking for direction from you, how you'd like to do it. If you're gonna ask me, I do think there's some sense in making the residential presentation next, getting comment on that, and then wrapping it all up together in a recommendation.
As an architect, that's what I feel as well.
That's what I would do, but staff, you know, I understand that staff they're under the pressure too. They're not ready to have us with another staff report come back to you for the residential component right away. So what they are ready for you is to make comments on the first part of it, and that gives them time to prepare a full meeting on the residential. And I think that makes, it wouldn't be my preferred way to do it, but I understand how they're doing it.
Well, I
So
think
don't-
we've
and
made our
that makes
I
sense
think
too.
we made our comments. We're just not ready to make an action. I don't want to continue to another meeting 2 weeks from now where we just kick around the same stuff. That doesn't make any sense. The motion would be to continue the meeting to the meeting where we're hearing about the residential.
So we would not be able to do we would not be able to, you would not be able to continue the meeting to discuss residential because that's a different element that has not been, we have not prepared notification for that. So you could provide comments now. And then we would, and as part of your deliberation on this component of the project, and then we would notice the next meeting.
So we're trying to break the approvals up. That's what staff's trying to do.
In bite-sized pieces, right? The recommendation.
No, the public meeting's closed.
Just continue this.
Forget what the other two were.
Yeah.
What are the dates and stuff?
Sorry, I'm causing trouble.
Sorry, we're trying to deliberate on the best approach to address everyone's concerns. So the notice that was published and sent was not specific to the 4 topics. It was recommendation to the Planning Commission on the Northgate redevelopment project, including these entitlements. So the notification that went out is broad enough for us to do what you're suggesting in terms of coming back with the residential, taking these comments, coming back with the residential, and then getting one recommendation.
So you don't need to renotice then.
No, but we're not going to be able to prepare a package on the residential by August 8th. Like it's just, so we could continue to a date certain in September, bring back the residential. Or maybe later in August. I don't know what's on the
You don't
agenda.
work 80 hours a week? What's the problem?
No, we do. But we also, you know. So I'm just we're just trying to kind of confer to what could be that meeting where we could have the time to bring back a meaningful package on the residential. So just if you can give us a few seconds.
It's essentially just.
Chair Kowalski, may I recommend a 5-minute break to allow us to deliberate with our
5-minute break.
I have a quick question.
Okay, let's just talk about the document.
We're gonna be done.
Okay.
Right, they're gonna make it. Halfway. If they could ever get into those brand new Russia. It's tough jokes. Yeah, you're that's the two drivers from both sides.
You know, I'm on vacation. I do the decision meeting. I'm you guys get your report on this. Well, right now, I think it's well, it was fine. Well, that's definitely. But we'll get all the fun stuff.
And then
Summarize like what
Okay. Chair, if you're ready, thank you for your patience. We're trying to remain flexible and pivot. So a couple things we want to make clear. Continuing, it would be, our recommendation would be to continue to a date certain of August 22nd. At that time, we would come back with the residential package. One thing is that we would want to make very clear in the record that we would then be accepting public comment again on the residential portion, given that it's new information. So just want to make that really clear for members of the public and on the record. But the noticing that was done was inclusive of the entire project and the recommendation from the design review board to the planning commission. So legally from a noticing perspective, continuing to a date certain and being clear that we will take public comment on the new information.
Okay.
Quick question, on that, we, there might have been some, you wanted the 4 points covered tonight and we might have not actually hit them all. So, or we could still comment, we could carry on some of the comments or discussion regarding the commercial portion also. If there's some things we feel that, needed some more discussion.
Well, I think that's kind
Or
of
is-
to your point of how the two are interrelated. So
Yeah.
obviously things might change when you're talking about the residential that you realize impact, some
Absolutely.
portion that we're talking, the bike and ped connection that we were talking about today, but how those two interface. What our objective here is to get feedback so that we can move on with a recommendation and completed feedback for the applicant.
Okay.
I mean, that's ultimately what I think we're all trying to do. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. thank
Okay.
you.
So I'm looking for a motion to continue to August
22nd.
22nd. Do I have a motion?
So we won't be going, we'll just do consensus items at the very end of this thing, commercial and residential.
Correct. The recommendation.
Yeah.
Oh, consensus
Well,
side.
so
Yeah.
you
And the
don't need
recommendation.
to,
Yeah.
you don't need to boil down consensus tonight then. Okay, board member, Summers, recommend that we continue this, item until date certain of August 22nd, where we will continue the discussion inclusive of the residential part of the project.
Is there a second?
I'll second member Alexon.
Okay, roll call. Member Alexin.
Aye.
Chair Kowalski,
Aye.
Member Summers,
Aye.
and Member Blaney.
Aye.
Member, the proposal has passed. And now we'll move on to the action items on the agenda. Wait, are we done?
That was the action.
That was the action. Sorry. Sorry, I'm out of place here.
I think we're done.
We're done. Wait, there's a director's report, no?
And I have one request of staff just to clarify the August meetings.
Okay. I don't know, the meeting looks like it's closed.
Yeah, we can go into the director.
Yeah. The August 22nd meeting?
Okay.
Well, no,
Think
that
I have
was
anything.
the regular.
Okay.
Oh, it's second and fourth.
Okay. I guess they closed it.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Chair, Chair Kowalski and design review board members were, just wanted to let you know that we're still in a meeting.
Are we?
Yeah.
We didn't close it? Oh.
I tried to, but
Did I? Yeah, I don't, did you officially adjourn it? I'm sorry, I missed that.
this meeting is closed.
Okay, great.
You're the boss.